Hey guys and welcome back to my channel. This is part 2 of What If Naruto Was Trained by Anko. Before we begin, don't forget to like, share and subscribe, and also go and support the author, link in description. Waking up the next morning, Naruto felt great. He had recovered from his exhaustion and was ready to train. Seeing it was still very early and that everyone was still asleep, he quietly left the room, trying not to wake Kiba and Shino. Once downstairs, he went to the front door and went outside. After some stretching and some warming up exercises, Naruto decided that it was time to start the heavy works. Making several clones, he told them to practice chakra control and the several taijutsu katas he had created. While his clone got to work, Naruto took out his sword to give it an inspection. It had been dealt some very heavy blows and he was worried that it was damaged in some way. Carefully going over the blade, he saw no imperfections. The blade had passed its test flawlessly. Thanks to the special seal on it, the blade was reinforced with chakra, so it was much stronger than a normal sword. Now that he thought about, Zabuza's sword probably had something similar since his own blade couldn't damage it. That complicated matters. He had hoped that he would be the only one with a sword that had such an ability. Maybe that was a bit naive, but hey, there's hoping, right? Seeing his sword was fine, he started done some kenjutsu exercises. He had made a lot of progress with kenjutsu, but like his taijutsu, he wanted to make his own style. But since he hadn't any examples to base his style on, it was a lot harder than he would like. Inside the house, people were getting up as well, and when Kiba saw that Naruto was missing, he panicked for a second before Shino told him that he was outside practicing kenjutsu. Kiba, not wanting to be left behind, got dressed and went outside to start training as well. He needed to become stronger if he wanted to beat Naruto. Passing Hinata and Anko, he yelled that he was joining Naruto in morning practice. Hearing that, the two girls followed as well. Tazuna was annoyed. It was 6:30 a.m. and several people were running inside the house making lots of noise. Since he was awake anyway, he got dressed to see what the commotion was about. Tsunami got up as well and started making breakfast for everyone. Naruto had just finished his kenjutsu training when he heard Kiba calling his name. He looked in the direction of where the sound came from and saw Kiba, Hinata and Anko running towards him. Smiling, he wished them a good morning and asked how they were doing. Getting 3 positive responses, he nodded and smiled. When they asked if he had sufficiently recovered, he told them he was feeling stronger than ever. Just then Tsunami came outside telling that breakfast was ready. The 4 of them went inside to have breakfast. Naruto, not yet having met Tsunami, introduced himself and received a hug from her, thanking him for saving her dad's life the day before. Blushing, he told her that it was nothing and that it was his job to keep him safe. Anko scowled seeing him blush from Tsunami's hug. Making Naruto blush was her job and hers alone. Now Anko, this is nothing to get jealous over. She's just thanking him for saving her dad's life. No need for jealousy. Kurenai whispered in her ear. Jealous? I'm not jealous. Anko tried to deny Kurenai's words. Damn it, she had to see that, didn't she? Stupid Kurenai, always annoying me. Anko thought. Yeah, sure, so that's why you looked like if you wanted to claw Tsunami-san's eyes out. Kurenai whispered, smiling. I'm not jealous, okay? Anko said, glaring at her best friend. Whatever you say, Anko. You can deny it all you want, but I'm just telling it as I see it. Kurenai said in a, I know it all, kind of voice. Don't concern yourself about my love life, Kurenai-chan. You have enough to worry about with Asuma. Have you made your move yet? You should hurry before another steals him away from you. Anko said, trying to give Kurenai some of her own medicine. Asuma and I are just good friends and nothing more. We don't feel about each other that way. Kurenai said seriously. Now who's denying things? Anko said, satisfied she had gotten a bit of revenge on her friend. When they were done eating breakfast, Hinata asked how Naruto had managed to make a clone that explodes and how he had trapped Zabuza. Naruto told her that when he heard Zabuza tell that he would sell Anko and Kurenai to slavers, he got really mad. While he was thinking that he would never allow that, he remembered the cage bunchins that were following them as protection or backup. He told them that one of those clones was an exploding type of cage bunshin, so he made a small army of clone to distract Zabuza. Next he told them how he had used Kawarimi no Jutsu to change place with that bunshin. When Zabuza had hit him, the clone exploded. After that, the last clone jumped out of his hiding place and attempted to stab Zabuza in the back, but got noticed and stabbed him just above the kidney. Wow, Naruto, that was some amazing thinking you did back there. To be able to defeat a guy like that is unbelievable. Kiba said. No, you're wrong, Kiba. If Zabuza had gotten serious from the beginning, I would have lost within minutes. He played around and toyed with me, trying to enjoy killing me, which made him underestimate me. That gave me a chance to form some kind of plan, which fortunately worked out okay. I managed to surprise him with the exploding clone, and that worked in my advantage. He didn't expect a mere genin to know such a jutsu, and it took him by surprise. Naruto explained to his teammate and friend. Naruto is right, Kiba. If Zabuza had fought Naruto without holding back, he would have defeated Naruto with ease. Zabuza is easily of high Junin level, so at his full power even we would have a hard time defeating him. Kurenai said. That's an important lesson, people. A shinobi fight isn't about who has the most jutsu or the most fancy techniques. It's about knowing your own limits and knowing when to fight and when to back down. Also, underestimating your enemy because of his or her appearance will get yourself killed. It doesn't matter if you're a genin or a junin, if you lose focus or get caught off guard, even the most simple attack can kill you. Anko continued. Hearing Naruto talk, Kurenai remembered that Naruto saved her life yesterday and that she had yet to thank him for it. She got up and went over to Naruto. After telling him to stand up, she gave him a hug and a kiss on his cheek, thanking him for saving her life. Kurenai looked at Anko and put out her tongue to her while Anko was glaring daggers at Kurenai. Oh, this meant war. If that was the way Kurenai wanted to play, she was all game. Realizing that maybe she had pushed a little too far in teasing of her friend, Kurenai went over to Anko and whispered an apology. Although she was still a little mad, Anko told her friend not to worry about it. Kurenai nodded and suddenly told everyone to pay attention. She then proceeded that both she and Anko thought that Zabuza was still alive. She explained that Hunternin were supposed to dispose of the corpse on the scene without moving it. Since that Nin took the body away, there was a chance that Zabuza was still alive. When Hinata asked about the Senbon that struck him in the neck, Anko told her that it was possible to injure someone and make it look like he was dead for a short period of time. But since he was heavily injured, it would take him at least a week or two to recover, and they would use that time to train and prepare. He would also have to recover from the poison that I put on the dagger before I stabbed him. Naruto said. Noticing that everyone was staring at him, he told them that he had put the poison that he stole from the other shinobis on the knife. Anko told him that even if they had the antidote, the poison would slow down his recovery and that he would have to flush out the poison from his body before he would be completely healed. This would buy them some extra time. Seeing that they would have about 2 weeks before the next attack came, they started discussing who should get what kind of training. Since they all had different fighting styles, this proved to be difficult. It was Anko who put an end to the madness by asking Kurenai if she had already taught her student tree and water walking. Kiba and Shino replied that they didn't know how to do that, but Hinata said that she had been taught those when she was younger. Kiba and Shino told Hinata that she had taken a head start in getting stronger and that they will catch up to her. Hinata smiled, secretly very proud that she knew something her teammates didn't. It raised her self-confidence a little, but she quickly told herself that they would catch up quickly and thus she would have to train hard herself. Kurenai said that she would teach tree and water walking to Kiba and Shino, while Anko said that she would start teaching the kunai spinning exercise to Hinata. Anko suspected that Hinata would be able to learn that exercise since as a Hyuga she had excellent chakra control. Every morning they would practice chakra control, and in the afternoon there would be sparring and some ninjutsu training. When Kiba asked why they should learn other jutsu since they had their family jutsu to begin with, Anko let Naruto answer that question since he once asked her the same question. Kiba, the problem with a lot of people that belong to a clan is that they only focus on clan jutsus. While it's important to know those jutsus, it's really not a good idea not to learn other jutsus as well. The same thing happens with people who have a bloodline limit. Take away their bloodline and they lose more than half of their strength. Let me give you an example. Hinata is part of the Hyuga clan, and like all members she's able to use the Byakugan. They are without a doubt a very strong clan with a very strong taijutsu style which needs the Byakugan to be 100% effective. Hinata, what would happen if you were unable to use your Byakugan? Naruto started to explain. Well, while the Juken would still be effective on his own, it would have lost a lot of power. For example, I wouldn't be able to see your tenketsu, thus I would be unable to close them. The juken targets the inner organs, but without closing your tenketsu you would be able to move and do jutsu. And a lot of our finishing moves are based on closing those tenketsu, so yes, we would lose more than half of our strength. Hinata said, starting to understand what Naruto was trying to say. That's why people like me that don't have a bloodline or family jutsus are dangerous, because we don't have a fixed style. When people see Hinata, they know what kind of style they use and they can act accordingly to fight her. But if she would attack with other jutsu, she would be able to take the element of surprise and her enemy could be taken by surprise. Don't underestimate the element of surprise, it's a powerful ally in battle. Naruto finished his explanation. The three members of Team 8 thought about it and come to the conclusion that knowing other jutsus might indeed be a very good tactical advantage and decided to learn at least a couple of them. Anko told them to get moving and they went off, starting their training for the next 2 weeks. Since she knew that Naruto had been working on his kenjutsu, she told him that he could work on that. Naruto happily agreed and went in another direction into the surrounding forest. Naruto had been working on his kenjutsu for a few months now and he was getting quite good at it, but he lacked techniques to use next to the normal moves. Just hitting and cutting his opponent wouldn't be enough. He needed an edge if he wanted to beat Zabuza, since he also lacked the necessary experience of actual sword fights. He took out his sword and looked at it, channeling some chakra into the seal. The soft blue casing appeared, giving the blade a magnificent look. He was truly proud of himself for making such an excellent weapon. He started to swing it around a bit to help him get some ideas. When he brought down his sword, a small gust of wind come forth from the blade. He realized that this was the air that was being pushed away when his sword came down. Then it hit him. What if he could somehow create enough force so that the air that was being pushed away actually would be able to hurt? Since it would create a cutting wind, that would be an excellent technique to have. He remembered that he and Anko had discovered that his chakra element was wind, so in theory this would be easier to accomplish for him. Flashback. Alright Naruto, like you asked, I got you that special chakra paper that would allow us to know your chakra element. As you know, the different chakra element are wind, fire, water, lightning and earth. Each has his strong and weak points, so keep that in mind. A lot of people in Konoha have the fire element since we live in the fire country, but the other 4 element have been known to appear as well. For example, I have water affinity. This means that for me Suiden jutsus are easier to learn, but Raiden jutsus are very difficult since that's the opposite element for me. Okay, all you have to do is channel some chakra into the paper. Go ahead, Anko said. Naruto wasted no time and channeled some chakra into the small piece of paper, and to his surprise it neatly cut in half. Anko explained him that this meant that his chakra element was wind. This made Naruto jump up and down, smiling very brightly. When Anko asked why he was so happy, he told her that his dad was a wind user as well. The fact that he had the same element made Naruto very happy, since for him it meant that he truly was his father's son. Anko told him that people with wind as their element were very rare in Konoha, and that she didn't really know any futon jutsu to teach him. That didn't faze Naruto, he just told her he would create his own. End flashback. Now that he had an idea to try out, he thought about it and wondered how he would make the wind into a cutting wind. He quickly came to the conclusion that the only thing he had to do was to expel chakra from his blade when he moved it through the air. And since his seal allowed him to create a chakra casing around his sword, he would have no problem on that department. He once again thanked his dad for writing that book on seals. He got up and made several dozen clones, telling them to start practicing on his newfound technique. He went over to a large mountain made of stone and started practicing as well. Anko and the rest had finished their morning training and were waiting for Naruto to come back so they could have lunch. After waiting for 20 minutes, Anko told them she would go and look for him. She went in the direction that she saw Naruto leave that morning and started her search. After about 10 minutes she could hear voices coming from her right. Curious, she went over to take a look and saw Naruto talking to a clone. She come into a small clearing and made herself known to Naruto. When he saw her, he quickly took her hand and dragged her all the way to the large mountain, saying something about a new technique. I found it. I made 2 techniques for my kenjutsu and they're awesome. Naruto boasted to Anko. He then told her to stand to his right and watch him perform his technique. He told her to pay attention to the rock. He got into his stance and grabbed his sword, raised it above his head. He then brought it down in diagonal motion starting from upper right down to his left. Anko, who had kept her eyes on the rock like she was told to, saw how a deep slash appeared into the surface. The slash went down from right to left in a diagonal way. I call it, Tengoku Seiden Kei's no Jutsu 1, and it's a long-range attack. Naruto proudly said. Anko had to agree, wind that cuts the heaven, seemed like an appropriate name for such a devastating technique. Then she remembered that he had said he created 2 new techniques. When she asked about it, he said to get behind him. She raised an eyebrow at that statement but did as she was told. Naruto made a Kage Bunshin who took his place next to Naruto. They both got into the same stance but the clone mirrored Naruto's stance. Naruto once again brought down his sword from right to left in a downward motion but the clone's sword went down from left to right. On the surface of the rock a X-shaped mark appeared cutting deep into the rock. This is, Tenjou Seiden Kei's no Jutsu 2, and is my second technique. Naruto said. Wind that cuts heaven and earth, a truly fearsome technique, Anko thought. Anko was at a loss of words for a few seconds but she quickly congratulated Naruto on creating 2 very powerful kenjutsu techniques. She then remembered that she was supposed to bring Naruto back so that they could have lunch and start their afternoon training. They hurried back both hungry and impatient to start the training. During lunch Naruto asked his friends how their training was going. Kiba and Shino said that they had made it to about halfway up the tree but that they fell down after reaching that point. Still Naruto thought that was very good progress in just one morning of training. Hinata, who was doing the kunai spinning exercise, didn't fare so well. She had managed to lift the kunai and slowly spinning it for a few seconds but after that she lost control. She looked a bit disappointed but Naruto quickly told her that this exercise was meant for people of high chunin level so being able to spin it was very good for a genin like herself. Hearing that she immediately felt better about herself and promised to do her best. After lunch they had a small taijutsu tournament which was a lot of fun for Naruto. He liked testing out his own style against others and he was very satisfied with the results. Though none of his friends were taijutsu specialists except Hinata but that was only in Juken he did found his style very efficient. After sparring each other twice they had half an hour of resting time before they started ninjutsu training. Anko was going to teach them the Kaden Gukakyu no Jutsu, a powerful fire jutsu that was commonly used by many leaf shinobi. Naruto, already knowing that one was going to learn a new Suiten jutsu named Suiten Daibikufu no Jutsu, and since they were close to a river he would have enough water available for him. When it was starting to get dark training ended for that day and every one of them was feeling very tired but also very satisfied. They had learned new things and they had gotten a little stronger. After washing up they assembled in the kitchen so they could spend the evening together with Tazuna and his family. After a nice meal the kids started talking about the things they learned and started wondering how strong they would be after this period of training. Kiba said that he couldn't wait to kick Sasuke's ass since he disliked the boy and his arrogant behavior ever since he had met the boy. This made Naruto remember his classmate and rival. They never got along before since Sasuke was a so-called genius and Naruto was dead last in his class. But now he didn't even care about his rivalry with Sasuke anymore. It was stupid and childish now that he thought about it. Kiba then told who Sasuke's teammates and sensei were, to which Kiba said that his teammates were Haruno Sakura and some nameless guy he didn't know. Naruto, who saw how fired up Kiba was, just let him talk about Team 7 even if he already knew this from Anko. Kiba didn't know the sensei's name but Kurenai told them that his name was Hitaki Kakashi, who was considered one of the best junin in the village. She also told them that he was a pervert, lazy and always late for several hours. After that they went up to their rooms to get some sleep since tomorrow would be a busy day again full of practice and training. They had been training for 4 days and training was going very well for everyone. Kiba and Shino had mastered tree walking to a degree that Kurenai-sensei started on the water walking exercise. They would have to completely master tree walking in their own time, she said. Hinata had made very good progress as well. She had succeeded into spinning the kunai for a full 10 seconds before she lost control over it. Anko said she was proud of her progress and that she was doing really well. Hinata, happy to be praised like that, continued practicing hard. She had also started thinking on how to modify the Jukin in a way that it felt natural to her. She hadn't come up with much, but it was a start, she realized. Naruto had made one other kenjutsu technique that he called Kei's Dongan no Jutsu. 3. When he made a stabbing motion with his sword, a bullet made of wind would be created. It made a small deep hole in the rock. So now he had 3 kenjutsu techniques that he could use, but he knew that he needed a few more of them, but no matter how much he racked his brain he didn't come up with any ideas. So he decided to focus on something else for the time being. He had plenty of stuff that he could do. He took out his book on sealing and started working on his version of seals for the Hiraishin no Jutsu. He still had lots of work to do on memorizing and creating his seal patterns for the jutsu. He hoped that he would have it done by the time the Chunin exams started. He wanted to show it to Ji-chan, Uruka-sensei and Hideki-san. Ninjutsu training had been going well for everyone. Kiba, Shino and Hinata each managed to produce a acceptable Kaden, Gukakyu no Jutsu, and were told to practice on their own to master it. Since that jutsu was a offensive one, Anko next decided to teach them a defensive jutsu. She decided that the jutsu Naruto used against Kiba would be very useful to them, so they started on that one. Naruto learned another Suiden jutsu that Zabuza had used during their fight called Mizu Bunshin no Jutsu. Though a very useful jutsu, it didn't have the same effect as the Kage Bunshin when it came to learning, since the Mizu Bunshin was made out of water and not out of pure chakra. Inari, Tazuna's grandson, had been very distant to the Leaf Shinobi ever since they arrived. Every time they come into the room he left going to his own room. Tonight however Inari had stayed glaring at Naruto and the rest. At first they let him be, but after several days if being ignored and glared at they began to get curious why he didn't seem to like them. Hinata had asked the question that would give them the answer. She had seen a picture that showed Tsunami, Inari and a third person whose part in the picture had been torn off. When she asked about it Inari got up and went upstairs. Tazuna told the gang about Inari's adoptive father who had been killed by Gato because he was considered a hero in the wave. To break the people's spirit and will to fight he had executed Kaiza in public. Inari had never been the same after that. Why do you fight? There's no way that you can beat Gato and his men. You'll just get yourself killed. You think you can come here and everything will be alright again. None of you know how much we suffer and how hard life is for us. Inari yelled after coming back down. Shut up. You don't know what you're talking about. You think you got it bad. Don't make me laugh, you're just a spoiled little kid who needs to grow up. Sure, you have lost your dad and I'm sorry for that, but don't believe for 1 second that you're the only one in the world who lost a parent. You at least have a mother and a grandfather who loves you very much. You don't know how good you have it. Have you been to town lately? When we passed through I saw kids the same age and younger than you living on the street, begging for food so that they wouldn't starve. They lost everything and yet they keep on living, fighting to survive the hand they have been dealt in life. You have a roof above your head, a warm bed and a meal at least 2 times a day, yet you stand there crying about that. There's no hope. Naruto exclaimed. He was furious about how Inari dishonored his father teachings by just giving up. By now everybody in the room was staring at Naruto. Kiba, Shino and Hinata had never seen Naruto so angry and upset. Until then he had always been calm and collected. Inari just stared at Naruto, not believing that someone would react in such a way. Anko and Kurenai just stayed quiet, waiting just in case they would have to intervene. They trusted Naruto not to do any stupid things. You aren't the only person to have lost someone they love. I grew up as an orphan, hated by my village for something I don't have any control over. I was called names and spit at. I was refused to enter shops and to buy food. I grew up not knowing who my parents were, not knowing if they had died or abandoned me. Anko was betrayed by someone she trusted and she was hated and mistreated by a lot of villagers as well, but do you see us crying and yelling that there's no hope for the future? No, we face our problems and we fight. We fight so that our future would be better than our past because the future is all we have. Your dad understood that very well since he fought for this country, but most of all he fought for your future, and what do? You just give up, not even trying to make things better. Your dad would be very disappointed if he was here. He taught you how to fight for those you love, yet all you do is cry about how unfair life is. Grow up. Life isn't fair, life isn't always easy, but giving up is never the answer. If you give up, then your dad sacrificed himself for nothing. Naruto said with tears in his eyes. He got up and left the room. Nobody said a word, shocked from Naruto's words to Inari, who was about to start crying again. His mom quickly went over and grabbed him in a hug. Anko got up and left the room in search for Naruto. In the room, Kiba, Shino and Hinata were thinking about the things Naruto had said about his past. They knew he wasn't well liked by lots of people, but they didn't know it was this bad. A lot of kids from school ignored him or called him names, but never had they known that things went as far as refusing him entry to shops or refusing him food. That was horrible in their opinion. Never had they seen Naruto do something that deserved such treatment. They vowed that if they ever saw someone mistreat Naruto again, they wouldn't allow it anymore. He was their teammate and their friend. No way they would allow such a thing to happen again. Anko found Naruto sitting at the river staring at the reflection of the moon in the water. His shoulders were slightly shaking and a tear made its way down his cheek. Anko went up to him and put her arms around him from behind. She pulled him in a fierce hug, letting him know that she was there for him. He tensed a little when he felt somebody's arms around him, but noticing it was Anko, he relaxed and leant into the hug. They didn't say a word, they didn't need to. They sat in silence, comforting each other by holding the other and knowing that the other person was there. After a while, Naruto had calmed down enough that Anko broke the hug and sat next to him. "Thank you, Anko-chan, I don't know what came over me back there," Naruto said quietly. "You don't need to thank me, Naruto-kun. You know I'm here for you just as I know that you're here for me as well," Anko said, taking Naruto's hand in hers. They sat there for a while, each thinking how lucky they were to have each other. When Anko asked if he wanted to spend the night outside just like they did several times during training, he accepted but said his stuff was in his room. Anko told him not to worry and that she would go and get it. She got up and made her way over to the house. When she got inside, everyone asked if Naruto was okay. "Naruto's fine. He's just a little shocked about how he reacted towards Inari. He didn't mean to blow up like that, but he really doesn't like people who just give up on everything when something goes wrong," Anko said. "So, where is he now? Shouldn't he come back inside?" Tsunami asked. She was thankful to the blonde shinobi because maybe now Inari would understand that he wasn't the only one who suffered in his life. "Naruto and I will spend the night outside, so I'm just coming to get his stuff. Don't worry about us, Tsunami-san. We spend 6 months in outside, so one night is nothing," Anko said while walking upstairs. After getting their stuff, she wished everyone a good night, telling them that they would see them in the morning, and went outside. She quickly reached the river again, where she saw Naruto waiting for her. He took out his tent from the scroll and set it up. The emotions had made him very sleepy, and tomorrow he would have continued training, so he needed his rest. He crawled into his futon ready for a good night's sleep. Anko too was tired, so she got ready for bed as well. When she turned to wish Naruto good night, she saw that he had fallen asleep already. "Good night, Naruto-kun," she said while giving him a small kiss on the forehead before going to sleep herself. The next day Naruto woke up feeling much better, but he kind of regretted yelling at Inari that way. The boy was just a kid after all. Maybe he should apologize for yelling at him, but he wouldn't apologize for the words that he had said. He truly felt bad that Inari lost his father, but he couldn't stand people who give up just because things don't go their way. Life didn't work that way. Hopefully Inari would understand that Naruto tried to help him. Looking to his right, he saw a sleeping Anko with a cute little smile on her face. He supposed she was having a good dream. Secretly he hoped that she was dreaming about the both of them. He really liked her more and more. It was driving him crazy. He thought about her more than anything else throughout the day. The things he would do so he could be the man of her dreams. Sighing, he got up and prepared for the day. Anko had been having a wonderful dream. She was dreaming about her and Naruto doing all kind of things that couple do, like going for a walk, kissing, and yes, even making love. Her body shivered at that thought. Thinking of her and Naruto doing stuff like that sent her body over the edge. She still was a little afraid though. Naruto was the first who made her feel those kind of things. Never before had a man affected her in such a way. When she and Kurenai went out on their free evenings, she received a lot of attention from the males, but she never really was interested in more than flirting. Anything more than that was over the line for her, and she stopped. With Naruto, however, she wanted more than just flirting. She wanted to be kissed by him and be touched by him, and those feelings and desire were driving her nuts. All she had to do was look at him and those feelings went rampant in her head. She would have to talk to Kurenai about this. Tengoku Seiden Kei's no Jutsu means wind that cuts the heaven. This is the first of Naruto's original kenjutsu techniques. It created his cutting wind by bringing down his sword from right to left. The wind is infused with Naruto's chakra that was stored into the seal. Using that chakra, the wind becomes very sharp and it is used as a long-range attack. Tenjou Seiden Kei's no Jutsu means wind that cuts heaven and earth. This is the same jutsu as before, only Naruto makes a clone which mirrors his attack. So while Naruto makes a right-to-left slash, his clone makes a left-to-right one, resulting in a X-shaped attack with twice the cutting power of Tengoku Seiden Kei's no Jutsu. Kei's Dangan no Jutsu means wind bullet technique. In this technique, Naruto makes a stabbing motion with his sword. By doing that, he expulses the chakra gathered in the seal on his sword and creates a bullet that will travel in a straight line towards the enemy. Finally, after 10 days training ended, they now started to guard Tazuna and the men who were building the bridge, since they didn't want to take a chance of Zabuza healing and attacking faster than expected. So each day at least one Junin, a Genin and a Kage Bunshin were present at the bridge. In case of an attack, the Kage Bunshin would dispel itself and warn Naruto and the others. When the full 2 week were over, all members of the team went to guard Tazuna and the bridge. Naruto did leave several Kage Bunshins at Tazuna's home, since he wouldn't be surprised if they tried to attack Tsunami and Inari when they were gone. When Naruto awoke that morning, he felt restless and he suspected that the battle would happen today. He told everyone how he felt and they made sure to be prepared for the worst. Naruto double-checked everything from his sword to his hip holster that held his throwing knives, just to check everything worked alright. It wouldn't do if in the middle of battle he noticed he had forgotten his sword of something like that. When they left, he makes several Kage Bunshins and Bakuretsu Kage Bunshins as backup and as protection for Tsunami and Inari. Better be safe than sorry, he thought. After everything checked out fine, he went outside waiting for the rest of the team. Though it didn't show, he was really nervous about having to fight Zabuza again. No doubt that Hunter Nin would be there as well. He really hoped everything would work out well and that nobody would get hurt or worse, killed. When he was thinking, everybody had gotten ready and joined him outside ready to leave. Everyone nodded their goodbye to Tsunami and she wished them a safe day. Wishing Tsunami a good day as well, the party left for the bridge. The bridge was almost completed, so now was the time for Gato to strike. When they reached the bridge after a peaceful trip without any encounters, they saw that the bridge was filled with wounded or even dead people. The workmen had arrived some time before and apparently so had Zabuza. Naruto cursed and made a few dozen Kage Bunshins. Alright, listen up. All of you except 10 start moving the injured back to the village and alert them of the danger. Naruto ordered them. Soon the wounded were out of harm's way, making the bridge free for battle. Next, the 10 of you protect Tazuna at all costs. Got him somewhere safe and keep him there. I'll make sure nobody will be able to follow you. Now go quickly. Naruto said, dismissing his clones. Tazuna protested, but in the end there was nothing he could do. Naruto retreated several feet and then used the Doden Doryuheki no Jutsu to separate Tazuna from the shinobi group by a high and thick mud wall. That way he would be saved from attacks and they wouldn't have to concentrate on protecting him. Also, with the number of Kage Bunshin that were guarding him, there was no way he would get hurt. Good thinking, Naruto. With the wounded and Tazuna out of the way, we won't have to worry about them. We can fight without holding back, Shino said. Naruto nodded and then focused his attention to the other side of the bridge, where he was sure Zabuza and his accomplice were waiting for them. So with as much courage as he could gather, he took a step forward and the rest followed. After a minute of walking, Zabuza and the Hunternin came into view, but with them were about 30 common thugs who were waiting to attack the village. They hadn't even thought of the fact that Zabuza would have such a number of men at his disposal. This complicated things. Alright, listen up. Kiba, Shino and Hinata, you guys take on the thugs and stop them from entering the village. Anko and I will take on Zabuza. No doubt he wouldn't hold back this time. Kurenai-sensei, can you take care of that Hunternin? Naruto said, taking control of the situation. Everyone nodded, saying that they would take care of their part in the fight. Zabuza cursed. Damn that brat, he came up with a good way to fight, he thought. He wondered if the blonde was some kind of genius making up such a plan in just a few seconds' time. He would not take any risks this time. He would go all out straight from the beginning, he couldn't afford any more mistakes on his part. He looked at the nin, a young boy called Haku next to him and knew that the kid was in for a though fight. Even with his special bloodline, fighting a genjutsu specialist would be dangerous. He hoped the kid would survive, he needed him for his plans. He didn't care less about any of the men that Gato had ordered him to take. For all he cared, they could just get themselves killed, which was a likely outcome since they would face 3 shinobi. Sure, they were genin, but they were shinobi nonetheless, so chances of them winning were small. Then he started to think about his own fight. Facing a strong genin like that brat and a junin of Mitarashi's level would be dangerous to say the least. Suddenly, without any visible sign, all hell broke loose. The 3 other genin had rushed in to start the attack on those thugs. Zabuza let them pass without even blinking an eye at them. They were not his opponent. Haku calmly made his way over to his opponent, leaving Zabuza alone with Naruto and Anko. So brat, we meet again, and let me assure you this time I won't go easy on you. I was careless last time and paid heavily for that one, but I guess I can only blame myself. But now the fight really begins. I hope you got stronger over the past 2 weeks, cause otherwise you won't last very long. Zabuza said, addressing Naruto. Give it your best shot, Zabuza. We will take on everything you've got and more, but in the end we will be the ones who will still be breathing at the end of the day. You, however, will not be leaving this place. Naruto said, smirking. While he said this, he slowly unsheathed his sword and took a battle stance. Anko took out a kunai and got into position as well. Zabuza snorted at Naruto's answer and took a firm hold of his sword. For about 2 seconds they stared into each other's eyes and shot forward. The sound of 2 swords colliding filled the area and marked the start of the battle that would be told for years to come and would be one of the biggest moments in the history of the wave. Naruto and Zabuza had attacked at the same time and were now trying to overpower the other one. Zabuza, being taller, stronger and older, had the advantage and started to push Naruto back. Just as he was about to overpower Naruto, he felt someone coming in from behind and had to evade a blow to the back. Anko, who had hoped to get him in the back, missed and had to quickly block a kick from Zabuza. Naruto had taken the time to rest from the power struggle and was now ready to counterattack again. He pushed forward and tried to catch Zabuza with a horizontal blow aimed at his chest. Zabuza easily blocked the sword and retaliated with a punch to Naruto's face. Getting hit hard in the jaw, Naruto stumbled backwards a little woozy from the blow. Zabuza, seeing this, gripped his sword and prepared to cut Naruto in half, but before he even got close he got hit in the face from Anko's heel. Damn it, they worked good together. One attacks while the other rests up and waits for an opening or to protect the other. This is bad, I need to find something to separate them. Zabuza furiously thought. If this kept up he would lose, he realized. He attacked Naruto again, trading blows with him while trying to come up with a plan. Kiba, Shino and Hinata, who were fighting a large number of enemies, had quickly come up with a strategy to fight. Okay, we need to stop these guys from entering the village. Even though they're just thugs and bandits, there's a lot of them, so we need to be careful. Shino, any ideas on how to handle this? Kiba asked his teammate. He knew that Shino always remained calm and usually could come up with a good strategy. I have a strategy that could work. You and Hinata attack them head on, separate them and take them down. While you guys do that, I will guard the rear and take out those few who get past the 2 of you. I'll also order my bugs to attack and distract those who you'll be fighting. Hinata, show them what the Juken is capable of and don't hold back. Kiba, you and Akamaru show them what teamwork is all about. Shino said, finishing his talk. Kiba and Hinata nodded, knowing that this would be a very good way to fight a large number of enemies, and prepared themselves for a long fight. Since there were so many of them, they would have to be careful, but they were sure they could win. They wouldn't let their senseis and Naruto down. They had a job to do and they would do it right. Seeing that the men were ready to attack, the 3 genin got ready as well. Kiba and Akamaru used Jujin Bunshin no Jutsu, which had freaked out some of the men who were watching. He and Akamaru then started to attack the mob with Gatsuga, which proved to be very effective in hurting them. Hinata started out with a very nice Kaden Gukakyu no Jutsu, which forced the mob to separate so that they wouldn't get burned. This made it easier for her to fight them with her Juken. Shino ordered his bugs to start draining the enemy's chakra. His bugs also acted as a distraction to aid his teammates. After several minutes several thug had been neutralized and the ones remaining started to have second thoughts about fighting these young shinobi. They had expected an easy fight and then to be able to destroy the village and have some fun. Coming here now seemed to be a big mistake on their part. Kurenai was annoyed at the way her fight was going. They had been fighting for a few minutes now and neither of them had succeeded in landing a hit. The shinobi in front of her was skilled, she admitted. He was fast, agile and had very good reflexes. He was also very skilled with his senbon, using them the same way she used a kunai. Charging forward for another blow they both met in mid-attack. Senbon met kunai and neither of them was willing to move an inch. You are very skilled and strong, Kurenai-san. It's a honor to fight you. The masked boy said to Kurenai. I could say the same thing to you. Those senbon are very annoying. Kurenai said, returning the compliment. You're strong, Kurenai-san, most likely stronger than myself, but unfortunately for you I have an advantage in this fight. The boy admitted. Kurenai was surprised. What did he mean with advantage? Could he mean an advanced bloodline limit? If so, then this could be bad for her, she realized. She saw him lower his free hand and starting to do one-handed seals. She didn't expected the boy to know such difficult hand seals. One-handed seals were very different from normal seals and several times harder to perform, yet this boy seemed to do them with ease. Hearing him yelling out, Sensatsu Susho, 1,000 needles made from water appeared and were headed for her. She quickly focused chakra to her legs and jumped away from the needles. This was dangerous, she thought. If this boy is a water elemental, then she had as good as lost the fight. Since they were on a bridge, he had an infinite supply of water all around them. Giving him no time to use the jutsu again, she charged. While everyone was fighting, Inari however was in deep thought. After he gotten over the fact that he had been yelled at by Naruto, he had started thinking about what Naruto had said. He was coming to the conclusion that everything Naruto had told him seemed true. 2 days after being yelled at, he had accompanied his mom when she went to town for shopping. Ever since his dad was executed, he hadn't been to town, so when he saw kids younger than him on the street begging for food or some money, he felt really ashamed of himself. Naruto was right, he thought. I'm nothing but a spoiled kid. He asked his mom if he could give some of his pocket money to the kids. When she heard that, she hugged him and said that she had never been so proud of him as she was now. When Inari saw the little kid's face light up as he gave her some money, he promised that he wouldn't run or complain anymore. Since then he had been thinking about how he should apologize to Naruto for saying those awful things to him. But even now he hadn't come up with a good way and it was frustrating him. Suddenly he heard something breaking downstairs. He went down to check if his mom was okay when he saw 2 samurai holding him mom trying to take her away. He started panicking. They wanted to take his mom away from him and probably hurt her. He couldn't allow that to happen. Gato had already taken his dad away from him, no way would he allow his mom being taken as well. He would have to fight, but how? He was just a kid, what could he do against 2 grown-up men? Seeing as they almost left the house, he decided that he would do whatever he could. Grabbing a weapon of some sort, he ran down the stairs after them. He then yelled out that he wouldn't let them take his mom. Tsunami saw Inari charging the 2 men and feared for the life of her only son. He was just a boy, he couldn't win this fight. Well, what do we have here? A boy trying to be a hero and save him mommy. Go home, kid, there's nothing you can do to save your mom. If you attack us, we will kill you. So be a good kid and go back inside. We were just ordered to take your mom, so there's no need for you to die. One of the men said. I'm not letting you take my mom. It's my duty to protect her. My dad told me to take care of her and I will, even if I die. Inari bravely said. Look, kid, do whatever you think you have to do, but know this, I will not hold back even if you're a kid. Hurry up, we were promised some fun with your mom. The man holding Tsunami said. The man next heard a young masculine voice coming from the person he held capture in his arms saying that he didn't swing that way. Both of the attackers looked and saw that instead of holding Tsunami, they were now hold a young boy with blonde hair. Before they could even begin to understand what happened, a knife embedded itself into their skull, causing them to die instantly. One of Naruto's Kage Bunshins had used the Kawarimi no Jutsu on Tsunami and had taken her place without anyone noticing. Since Tsunami and Inari were now safe, the other clones had finished the job. When Inari asked what was going on, one of the Bunshin said that they were ordered by the original Naruto to protect Inari and his mom. Tsunami and Inari couldn't help but feel very thankful to Naruto for thinking of them. Inari would thank Naruto for everything he had done the moment he got back, he promised himself. Back on the bridge, Naruto was getting tired. Even with 2-on-1, Zabuza proved to be a very difficult and dangerous opponent. Blocking the hard and powerful blows of Zabuza's sword ate away at his chakra, and the muscles in his arms and shoulders were in pain from having to block such blows. Anko as well was getting tired. That damn mist shinobi was stronger than she originally thought. They would have to finish this quickly if they wanted to survive. She noticed Naruto making a sign that meant that he wanted her to distract Zabuza for a brief moment. She had no idea what he was planning, but she trusted him with her life. If he wanted her to distract Zabuza, then that was what she would do. Letting out a shout, she charged him. She started doing hand seals and used Kaden, Hausenka no Jutsu, and fired several balls of fire in Zabuza's direction. This forced him to back up and shield behind his sword so he wouldn't get burned. Seeing he was shielding himself with his sword, she quickly used Sene Jishu to grab him. This jutsu was one of the jutsu she learned from Orochimaru. It allowed her to summon snakes out of her sleeves which shot at the opponent. The snakes would bite and grab him, and she would be able to pull him towards her. Zabuza, who was shielding himself from the balls of fire, didn't have time to block or destroy the many snakes that now were biting and grabbing him. Suddenly he felt himself being pulled forward and he flew right into Anko's fist, who practically shattered his jaw. Crashing down, he stood up holding his jaw with his hand, trying to bite off the pain. Anko suddenly heard Naruto yelling for her to move to her right. Losing no time, she jumped as far as she could to her right side. Next thing she knew, she felt a huge gust of wind passed right next to her. Naruto had been preparing for his next attack and was now waiting for an opening. When he saw Zabuza flying back from Anko punch to the face, he knew it was now or never. Yelling to Anko to get out of the way, he raised his sword. Zabuza heard the blonde yell at his teammate and looked up. He had been hit hard enough for him to actually see stars around his head. He heard the blonde call out his next attack. But seeing as he was standing a fair distance from him, he figured he would have time to block or evade the incoming attack. Naruto brought his sword down yelling, Tengoku Seidenka's no Jutsu, and watched as his attack harmlessly passed Anko. Zabuza, however, wasn't so lucky. When he saw the brat bringing his sword down, he realized that this was a long-range attack. Cursing, he tried to get up, but still hurting from the hit in his face, all he could do was once again hiding behind his faithful sword. When the attack made impact, however, he couldn't hold on and flew several feet backwards, crashing into the bridge once again. He couldn't believe the raw power of this attack. It had literally blown him away. What the hell was that? It knocked my right off my feet. Who the hell is this kid? If I didn't block that, it would have cleaved me in half. Where does that kid get such power? Zabuza thought. Naruto cursed. He had intended to finish the fight right there, but Zabuza had managed to block his Tengoku Seidenka's no Jutsu. Now he would be on his guard and it would be difficult to use the technique again. Using that technique took a lot of chakra, and it wasn't like he could do it all day long. Though Zabuza didn't know about the two other techniques he had, he would have to careful not to waste them by using them too soon. Anko whistled, seeing the power of Naruto's attack. It seemed to be as strong as she thought it would be. Too bad Zabuza had managed to get away, but they would try again. Zabuza grabbed his sword that he had fallen out of his hands when he landed, but when he picked it up he froze. He took a closer look and saw a crack in his sword. Impossible. This sword is one of the strongest swords in the mist, and it got cracked by that attack. How is this even possible? Nothing has ever damaged his sword before. Zabuza told himself when he saw the crack. If he took any more of those attacks, his sword would eventually break into pieces. While Zabuza inspected his sword, Naruto and Anko wasted no time and started their combined attack again. Naruto, who had also seen the crack in Zabuza's sword, tried to focus on further cracking the blade, while Anko focused on injuring Zabuza. Even with the recent hits he received, Zabuza proved to be an excellent shinobi and fought back while trying to hold his ground. He brought down his sword towards Anko, but Naruto appeared in front of her, blocking the sword. Anko immediately reacted and kicked Zabuza in the ribs. Satisfied when she heard the noise of one or more ribs breaking, she backed away. Naruto too jumped backwards and make a clone, both taking their battle stance again. Wincing when he felt his ribs break, Zabuza saw Naruto getting ready to do his attack again. Seeing the clone take the same stance, he figured then they would do the attack twice. So even when he evaded the first blow, he would have to deal with the second one. He remembered how the brat brought his sword down from right to left, so if he simply leaned to his left he would be okay. The kick to the ribs had severely slowed him down, and if he tried to move too quickly he would only make it hurt worse. So he would dodge the attacks by a minimum of movement. Anko, seeing the stance of Naruto's second technique, jumped behind Naruto, making sure she was out of harm's way. The second she was behind Naruto, he and his clone brought down their sword and yelled, Tenjou Seiden Kei's no Jutsu. Hearing a different name than the first time, Zabuza realized he made a big mistake. He saw something X-shaped heading towards him, and having no other choice he once again put his sword in front of him, hoping it would stop the attack. He braced himself, but when he felt the attack hitting him he realized that there was no way he would be able to remain standing. Crashing into the hard surface of the bridge, he gasped at the pain his ribs gave him and asked himself why he ever took this job. Sitting up, he grabbed the handle of his sword, glad that it had survived the blow, but when he lifted it he heard it break into several pieces. He had lost this fight. No way he could win now. Naruto made 4 more clones, so now there were 6 Narutos standing on the bridge. Each one took their sword and held it in front of them, pointing towards Zabuza. Naruto decided to give the man a chance to surrender and save his life. This is the end, Zabuza. Surrender and I will spare your life. Otherwise I will be forced to end your life on this very bridge. Naruto said. That's one thing I can't do, brat. I'm a proud shinobi and to surrender would be a disgrace. I have fought proudly and I will die the same way. Zabuza answered. Very well, since that's the choice you made, you leave me no choice. But know this, Momochi Zabuza, it was an honor fighting a strong shinobi as yourself. I have learned a lot from our fights and for that I thank you. Know also that my next attack was inspired by you. Naruto said, giving Zabuza a small bow of the head, showing his respect to the defeated shinobi. He and each clone took a stance which Anko recognized as the stance for his third technique. This is it. Haiden Uzumaki style. Jinikei Seiden Kei's Dangan no Jutsu. 1. Naruto yelled, and with that every Naruto's sword pierced the air and create 6 air bullets which impacted Zabuza only a second later. Anko saw the 6 Narutos perform his third Kenjutsu technique, and when she looked at Zabuza, 6 holes had appeared in his upper body. Each hole had targeted a organ that if injured was lethal. Zabuza's heart, liver, kidneys and lungs were punctured by Naruto's jutsu. One of those wounds was lethal, but all 6 of them meant instant death. She wondered when Naruto learned this move and why he didn't show it to her. Naruto dispelled his clones and fell on his knees. He truly wished Zabuza would surrender, but it wasn't meant to be. He did understand Zabuza's reasoning, however, for a shinobi death with honor was acceptable. And as a swordsman he lived by the sword and he would die by it. Zabuza knew and understood this better than anyone. Still he regretted killing the man, he would never get used to killing, he was sure of that. Anko went over and hugged him, telling him that he had done the right thing. He allowed the man to die with dignity, and that was all Zabuza wanted. He nodded and got up, saying that they should help their team members. Anko nodded and made her way over to Kurenai while Naruto went to join Kiba and the rest. Kurenai and her opponent found themselves almost evenly matched. Until now neither of them was able to take the advantage on the other. But that changed when Haku used his bloodline limit to its fullest possibilities. He had made several mirrors of ice around Kurenai, making it look like she was in the of a large dome. All around and above her were mirrors, and it was worrying her. She had no idea what was going to happen. She saw her opponent back away until he reached a mirror, and shocked she saw him get inside it. He then told her that this was his ultimate bloodline jutsu and that it was unbeatable. Kurenai looked around, trying to find a way to escape this very dangerous situation. She quickly turned around and tried to run towards the free space between the mirrors on the other side of the dome. When she thought she had made, Haku already appeared in the mirror before her. Trying to run is useless, Kurenai-san. When I use this jutsu I'm at least twice as fast than I normally am. There is no way you'll be able to outrun me here. Haku announced. Kurenai forced herself to calm down. There had to be a way to defeat these mirrors. Maybe she could melt them with a fire jutsu, but she doubted it. Trying it would be a waste of chakra in her opinion and she needed every bit of it. She grabbed a kunai in each hand and waited for his attack. Not a second later she felt a sharp pain in her shoulder. Looking at what might have caused it she saw a senbon sticking out of it. She quickly pulled it out but no sooner Haku disappeared from the mirror before her and started to appear in several other mirrors. The next thing she knew several senbon had stabbed her all over her body. Damn it, I can't even see him move. How many of those senbon does he have with him? This is crazy, I need to do something quick or else this will end bad. Kurenai said trying to think of something. She started to protect her vitals but couldn't prevent from getting hit several times. Haku who had been throwing senbon upon senbon at Kurenai was getting tired. This jutsu needed a lot of chakra to maintain and he might need chakra if he needed to help Zabuza fight the rest of these leaf shinobi. He needed to end this fight. He moved out a mirror to end the fight but just then he looked outside his dome and he saw Zabuza about getting hit from that blonde guy's attack. He stopped his advance on Kurenai and when he saw that Zabuza wouldn't or couldn't move, he ran past Kurenai trying to reach him in time. Kurenai however had seen Haku slow down and stop, and she quickly cast a genjutsu on the exit he was running to making it so that he would run straight at her instead of outside. She held out her kunai and ran towards Haku. When they met Haku ran straight into the kunai piercing his heart killing him. She saw the mirrors were starting to break and disappear so she calmly walked outside the dome. When she got outside she saw Anko heading towards her and smiled happy that both of them had survived. Kiba, Hinata and Shino had devastated the small army of thugs. Kiba and Akamaru tore through their ranks like they weren't even there. Hinata had defeated several thugs with her Jukin and with every enemy she defeated her self-confidence grew by leaps and bounds. Seeing that she could fight using the Jukin told her that she wasn't weak or useless like she had thought she was. Thanks to Naruto and the rest of the team she had become stronger over the last 2 weeks and it showed. Shino stood there looking at the way Hinata defeated enemy after enemy finding it hard to believe how she could think that she was weak and useless. Judging by the number of enemies still standing he saw that they had defeated about 3/4 of them. The remaining ones didn't seem too eager to continue the fight but he wouldn't let them escape. He ordered his bugs to attack them. All of a sudden they heard someone yell saying that this was the end. Everybody stopped fighting to look what was happening. Everybody saw Zabuza getting hit with Naruto's attack and saw him falling down. Even the thugs knew that he wouldn't get back up and it scared them so much that they started to run towards the edge of the bridge trying to board the boat on which they got here. Hinata, Kiba and Shino prevented them from doing just that and defeated them in record time. They saw Naruto coming their way and decided to meet him halfway. Anko and Kurenai were running towards them as well. They all met in the middle of the bridge each one more exhausted than the next but they were all alive and relatively unhurt and that was what mattered most. Kurenai was about to congratulate everybody for a job well done when they heard clapping. They turned around and saw several dozen men standing there with weapons and one man with a cane. Well, it seems Zabuza and his brat were as useless as I thought them to be. But I suppose I should thank you guys for taking him out in my place. You saved me quite some trouble. Gato laughed loudly finding the whole situation very amusing. The Leaf Shinobi couldn't believe their bad luck. Just as they thought the battle was over this happens. They were exhausted and having to fight this many men again would be very hard and dangerous. Just as they prepared for an attack a arrow hit Gato right between the eyes. Turning their heads they saw the whole village standing there armed to the teeth and ready to fight for their country. Apparently Tazuna and Inari had rounded up every villager to come and fight Gato and his men in order to restore peace in their lives. Seeing that the thugs were getting scared by the number of villagers Naruto decided to help out a little and made as much cage bunchins as he could. In an instant several dozen clones popped into existence and took out their sword and got ready to attack. The large number of villagers and clones was enough to scare the thugs so they hurriedly got onto the boat and left. After dismissing the clones Naruto fell down on the ground exhausted and hurting all over his body. Hinata, Kiba and Shino sat down next to him tired and sleepy as well. All 4 of them were grinning like crazy though. They had fought an amazing enemy and they had won. They felt really proud of themselves. Not even 5 minutes later all 4 of them had fallen asleep and never felt how they were carried back to Tazuna's house like heroes. Hiden Uzumaki style. Jingake Seiden K's Dongan no Jutsu. Means, Secret Uzumaki style. Wind bullets that pierces the galaxy. This is the first secret technique of Naruto's Kenjutsu style. He makes 5 kage bunchins and each one performs the Kase Dongan no Jutsu. So 6 bullets impact the enemy's body but each bullet is aimed at a vital point. Naruto based this technique on Zabuza's silent killing style. He aims the bullets at the heart, lungs, liver and kidneys making getting hit by this technique an instant death. While the village was celebrating the end of Gato's reign of terror, Naruto and the rest were sleeping like newborn babies resting from the fights and the emotions. Anko and Kurenai had awoken several hours ago but the 4 genin, and 1 dog, were still sleeping off their fatigue. Anko and Kurenai had told each other their side of the battle. They would have to report everything to the Hokage so they better have their stories complete. It helped that writing their report took some time because Anko was slowly getting crazy wanting to talk to Naruto. She had checked up on him several times already, each time to restrain herself from either kissing him or waking him up. Kurenai thought it was hilarious to see Anko react that way. Needless to say, Anko was not amused with Kurenai's teasing. Stop it, Kurenai, it's not funny. I really don't know what to do anymore. I'm going crazy here and all you do is laugh at me. Anko said, close to crying. Seeing that her friend was close to start crying, Kurenai stopped her teasing and told Anko to follow her. They stood up and left the house going to sit by the river. Kurenai realized that these kind of emotions were very new and scary to Anko. Her friend had always closed her heart to anyone ever since Orochimaru, a man she admired above no other when she was young, had abandoned her before betraying the village. All of a sudden that man became public enemy number 1 and since she was his student they treated her as if she was a traitor herself. As she was still a little girl at the time it left her very hurt and emotionally vulnerable. She closed off her heart for people so she couldn't get betrayed and hurt again. And until Naruto came along no one had managed to make it into her heart. After years of being alone she now had somebody who she could relate to and who she deeply cared for and it scared her. Talk to me, Anko, tell me what's wrong. Kurenai softly said. I'm going out of my mind, Kurenai. Ever since I met Naruto things completely changed. I don't know how to act or what to do anymore. We got along great from the beginning and we had a really good tie together and at the end of the 2nd month of his training he pulled me aside and gave me a small package. When I opened it I saw these 3 beautifully forged knives that he had made especially for me. He made them as a thank you for all I had done for him. All I did was teaching him things he should have been taught in the academy and some sparring. Never had I received such a thoughtful present before, it literally shocked me into silence. I gave him a hug and a kiss on each cheek shocking myself and him. She said taking out one of her knives to show Kurenai. When she saw it Kurenai could believe Naruto had made such a beautiful knife. It was exquisite and almost a piece of art. Amazing aren't they? I never leave without them, they make me feel safe like no other weapon ever could. Then 3 months into Naruto's training he learned who his parents were. Don't ask me who they were, I won't tell, but it made him break down in front of me. He cried and cried until I couldn't stand it anymore and I grabbed him in a hug again. You know me, I have almost never hugged a boy, let alone a young man before. I don't know what came over me but I just needed to hold him and comfort him. He cried into my shoulder for what seemed like hours and he eventually fell asleep in my arms. And the next thing I know I gave him a kiss on the forehead. I was stunned at what I did but it felt so good to give him that little kiss. She smiled softly remembering giving that little kiss. The next morning he made me the best breakfast ever, I swear he's a wonderful cook, and then he thanked me for what I did. And again I hugged him and then he called me Anko-chan. You know that if someone else had called me that before I would have put him in the hospital, but when Naruto called me that it made me feel really strange. My heart just started beating like I had run a marathon and what do I say? I tell him that it's all right for him to call me that. Never have I allowed someone to call me that yet I allowed it to Naruto. Anko said actually feeling a little relieved already. Kurenai had been listening very carefully to her friend and knew that Anko was starting to fall in love or already had falling in love with Naruto but didn't realize it yet. Seeing Anko was about to continue her story she focused her attention back on her. That all happened at the beginning of the 3rd month and during that month I had the best time of my life. We trained really hard and he made excellent progress but once training was over it was like he was a whole different person. During training he was serious and always did what he was asked of him. If I told him to do 500 push-ups he did them without complaining. But once training was over he became a normal boy who told jokes and things like that. When I asked him about it he said that during training I was his sensei and that he wouldn't disrespect me by goofing off or being stubborn. You have no idea how good it felt to be respected by someone after all these years. I know you were always by my side and I'm eternally grateful for your friendship, but when Naruto said those words I thought I was going to faint from happiness. Then one night he told me about how his life had been, and let me tell you, it wasn't pretty. When he was done I told him about my past. Never have I spoken about what Orochimaru had done to me and others, but that night I told Naruto everything. From beginning to end I told him about the experiments, the curse seal and all the rest that man had done. Then he got up and promised to me that if he ever found Orochimaru he would kick his ass. Just like that. I had to make him promise to run if he ever encountered Orochimaru, but he only agreed to run if he didn't threaten or hurt any of his precious people. And then he said the words that just rocked my world. You are my precious person and I will not allow anyone to ever hurt you again. Hearing that my heart almost exploded. Anko finished softly with a smile on her beautiful face. Kurenai had smiled when she heard Naruto's words. He really had gotten through to Anko with those words. They were everything Anko always had wanted to hear from someone. She started to respect Naruto more and more. Sure, she already respected Naruto as a really talented shinobi and she never hated him because of the Kyuubi, but now he truly had her respect as a friend and person. To do what he did for Anko put Naruto in what she called the good men group in her head. Most of Konoha's male population was filed under her pervert and scum group. After those 6 months together I was so used to have him by my side that I didn't want those months to end. But after we met with you and your team we went to his place. When we arrived we found his place vandalized and several hate messages lying on the floor wrapped around a stone. I was furious. I thought that if I ever found who did this to my Naruto-kun he wouldn't survive the day. I called him my Naruto-kun. At the time I didn't think about it, but it felt so right to call him that. Then I just grabbed him and told him that he was staying at my place from now on. When I saw Zabuza cut down that clone who we all thought was Naruto I felt my world collapse. I felt horrible and thought I was going to die. That 1 second before the clone exploded was without a doubt the most terrible experience in my life. Then when I realized that he was still alive I almost tackled him and kissed him right there. I was so happy he was okay. Then a few days ago I had a wonderful dream about the both of us doing couples stuff, you know, holding hands, kissing and making love. I swear I almost lost it right there. Now every time I look at him I just want to kiss and hold him. I'm really lost, Kurenai. What's wrong with me? Why do I feel this way? Anko said, tears running down her cheeks. Kurenai pulled Anko into a hug, allowing her to cry for a bit. She knew Anko needed to let it out. The past few days were stressful on her mind and body and now it all come out. After she had cried a little Anko had calmed down enough to listen to Kurenai. Anko, there is absolutely nothing wrong with you. Do you really not know what those feelings are? It's simple. Love. You love Naruto with all your heart. You want to hold him and kiss him because that's what people who are in love do. It's natural to have these feelings. You and Naruto have a lot in common and you both had a terrible past. Things like that connects people. When he feels sad so do you, when he's happy so are you. That's what it means to be in love. You want my advice? Tell him how you feel. Go up to him, grab him and go for a walk and talk to him about your feelings. Kurenai said. But what if I screw up? What if he doesn't feel the same about me? I would ruin everything. Anko said, afraid of telling Naruto about her feelings. Are you kidding me, Anko? The boy adores you. He's always looking where you are. When you talk to him his eyes shine like crystals in the sun. He's always concerned about you. The boy loves you, Anko. There isn't any doubt in my mind about that. But just like you he's afraid of screwing up and hurting you or getting hurt. Kurenai said, smiling. But what about Konoha? I mean, I'm 10 years older than him. I don't care about that, but some people will. You know how things go in the village. Anko said, knowing that this could mean trouble for both her and Naruto. Well, if you're really worried about that I suggest you wait until after the Chunin exams to make it official. They can't do anything after that. I mean, Naruto is almost certain of being promoted to Chunin. Can you imagine their faces when they hear he defeated Momochi Zabuza? If he's a Chunin then he's a fully certified shinobi and an adult, so there's nothing they can say. In my honest opinion, I think you should tell him while we're here. You'll never be left alone in the village and there are ears everywhere. Here at least you won't have to worry about that. Kurenai said, trying to help her friend. Anko said that she would think about it since they would be here for at least another week. The mission only ended when the bridge was done and that would take at least 1 week. So she still had a little time to sort out her feelings and talk to Naruto. Kurenai nodded and together they made their way back to the house. Before going inside, Anko hugged her friend and thanked her for listening and her advice. Laughing, Kurenai told her she was more than welcome and that she was expecting to be invited at the wedding. Anko blushed hearing the word wedding. While the two women were outside talking, Naruto had woken up finding the house empty except for his teammates who were still sleeping. Shrugging, Naruto went downstairs in his boxers trying to find out where everybody was. Just when he came down the stairs, Anko and Kurenai opened the front door. When Anko saw Naruto and Naruto saw Anko, both froze and went red in the face. Anko stared and Naruto was trying to cover himself up. Remembering where he had left his clothes, he quickly told them that he would be right back and disappeared. Anko couldn't believe her luck. This just had to happen when Kurenai was standing behind her. She would never live this down, she just knew it. Still red in the face from seeing Naruto in his boxers, she went straight for the kitchen trying to pretend nothing happened. I mean, it wasn't the first time she saw a man in his boxers. You see some crazy things after midnight thanks to sake. But the fact that it was Naruto in his boxers blew her mind away. Beside her, Kurenai was trying to hold her laugh, but it proved to be very hard. Seeing both Naruto and Anko turning red in the face really was funny, she couldn't help it. A few minutes later, Naruto came back down with Kiba, Shino and Hinata in tow. Sitting down in the kitchen, neither Naruto or Anko dared to look at each other. After a few minutes, Kiba asked about how they had defeated Zabuza and the Hunterman. Thankful for the chance to talk about something, they each told their story. When Naruto told them about the sword techniques, Kurenai and the other genin wanted to see them performed. So they went outside to the place Naruto had learned and practiced his moves. After his first 3 techniques, Anko asked him about his 4th one and when he had made that one. Well, I kind of thought about it during the fight. I remembered how he told about silent killing and I thought that would be a cool technique, so I decided to try it. Naruto admitted shyly. With that, he demonstrated his final Kenjutsu technique. You invented such a powerful technique on the spur of the moment. They all asked him, stunned by his answer. Yeah, why? Naruto asked, not really understanding what the fuss was about. They all looked at him and started shaking their head and saying some about hidden genius or something like that. Then they congratulated Naruto on making such powerful techniques on his own. He just brushed them off, saying it was nothing. He also said that he would make many more powerful jutsu, so when he had a family he could teach them to his children. Nobody, not even Anko, missed the way he looked at her when he said family. Anko's heart melted seeing the look in his eyes and made her decision to tell him how she felt as soon as she was alone with him. Kurenai, seeing the look on Anko's face, realized that Anko had made her decision and couldn't be happier. Now if only she would get them alone for a while. Very well. Once again, well done everyone. You all have become very strong these past 2 weeks and we're very proud of you. Now for something else. Kiba, Shino and Hinata, you 3 come with me so I can write down your report about the fight. Naruto, you stay here with Anko. She will take care of you. Kurenai invented something so she could give Anko some private time with Naruto. Anko smiled at her and nodded her thanks. After everyone left, Anko and Naruto sat down with Naruto, wondering why she needed him to write this report since they fought together the whole time. But he wasn't about to say no when he could spend some time alone with Anko. He truly liked her a lot and hoped that maybe one day she would like him back. Anko was getting really nervous about all of this. She had never done this before and she was terrified to make a big mistake. Why was this so hard, so wondered. She sat down and told him to do the same, so he sat in front of her waiting for her to start on this report thingy. Naruto, I need to tell you something, but I'm very nervous about this, so please don't interrupt me. Anko said. Seeing him nod, she continued. Naruto, the past 6 months have been the best time of my entire life. I met you, a young boy in need of a sensei, and I saw myself in you. Lost and lonely, trying to find acceptance by those who disliked you for no reason. I can honestly say that the decision to be your sensei was the best decision I have ever made in my life. The time we spent training in the forest was amazing, you were amazing. Every time you managed to surprise me or exceed my every expectation. I was and still am really proud of you. You were my first student and you proved to be the best student there could ever be. You respected me, you listened to my boring lectures with every bit of concentration you had. It made me really happy that you actually respected me as your teacher. Anko said before taking a deep breath. But along the way something happened, I became so attached to you. First as a student and then as a friend. You understood more than anyone what I had went through and I understood you. It made me incredibly happy that we could talk about our painful pasts. When you called me, Anko-chan, for the first time I thought my heart was going to explode from happiness, and when you called me your precious person I almost lost it. Then when you fought Zabuza for the first time and that clone got hit I thought I would die. I never felt so bad in my whole life. The thought of losing you was unbearable. I guess what I'm trying to say is that I really like you. No, what I'm trying to say is that I love you with everything I got, hoping that you love me too. Anko said, hoping not to get hurt by being rejected by the young man she loves. Naruto was stunned. Anko told him she loved him. She loved him like he loved her. He couldn't believe it. He was so happy that he was about to faint from happiness. But instead he just got up and walked over to Anko and gently cupped her face with both hands. He raised her head so he could look into her eyes. I love you too, Anko-chan, was all he said before kissing her with all the love he had for this beautiful woman before him. Anko felt Naruto's hands cup her face and raising her head so they would look into each other's eyes. She was lost in his beautiful blue eyes and she knew she could stare at them forever. Then she heard him say, I love you too, Anko-chan. Her heart stopped. Did she hear that correctly? He really loved her. All her questions and every other thoughts for that matter disappeared into nothingness as he kissed her. Not just a peck on the lips but a true kiss. A kiss between lovers, between two people who loved each other more than anything in the world. She put her arms around him and melted into his embrace, enjoying every second of it, not wanting it to end. When their lips separated they smiled and held on to each other for dear life. They both needed to know this was real and not some kind of dream. They had finally found what both had been looking for years. They had found that special person who they could love and who would love them back, a special person that even when the whole world turned against you, would stand next to you, supporting you every step of the way no matter what the odds. They finally had found someplace they belonged, and they belonged to each other. They just sat down holding each other, enjoying the feeling of love and acceptance both felt. After a while Anko had snuggled into his chest while Naruto had rested his chin on her head, enjoying how she melted into his body. They would need to get back soon, but for now they were alone in the world. Kurenai had led the three genin back to the house, thinking how she would explain this if someone asked about Anko and Naruto. She really didn't want to say something that she shouldn't, who knows what would happen. Unfortunately for her, the three remaining genin had noticed that she was worried about something. Hinata, with her newfound confidence, decided that she wanted to know what was going on. Kurenai-sensei, is everything alright with Naruto-kun and Anko-sensei? Hinata said with a strong voice. Whatever do you mean, Hinata? There's nothing wrong with them, I assure you. Kurenai tried to evade the question. I think Hinata wants to know if Naruto and Anko-sensei are going to confess to each other. Shino said in his typical no-nonsense voice. Kurenai was caught and she knew it. No way could she escape from this question. Seeing no other way, she told them that Anko had broken down that morning and that she was having a really difficult time these last few months. Without revealing too much, she explained that for Naruto and Anko, love was something new and really complicated. She asked that they wouldn't tell anyone what they had learned here so that Naruto and Anko wouldn't get in trouble. The three of them quickly promised to protect the secret and not to tell anyone. Naruto was their teammate and their friend, Anko was their second sensei, and they loved and respected both of them. A few hours later Anko and Naruto came back walking hand in hand, each with a smile on their face. Everybody present cheered for them and congratulated them. Their friends were truly happy for both of them, and Anko and Naruto couldn't be happier knowing that their friends supported them. Since it was already late, they decided to go to bed, but not before Naruto told his teammates that he had to talk to them in the morning. His teammates nodded, saying they would be there. With that, everyone went to bed. Anko gave Naruto one last kiss before she went inside her room, no doubt about to be questioned about Naruto. When Naruto woke up the next morning, he felt really nervous. He had decided to tell his friend the truth about the Kyuubi and his parents. Last night he had talked about it with Anko. Flashback. Anko-chan, do you think it would be a bad idea to tell the rest about Kyuubi and my parents? Naruto asked softly. I don't know, Naruto-kun. I truly believe that they are your friends no matter what. They believe in you and know you would do anything for them. Maybe you should tell them. I would show them how much you trust them. Anko replied, keeping him in a tight hug. Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. They deserve to know the truth, but I'm still a little afraid of how they might react. I mean, Kyuubi did kill a lot of people, and there are certainly going to be family members of them amongst those people. Naruto said, showing how much he worried about telling them. I'm sure everything will be fine. I'll be there right next to you. Don't worry. Anko promised, and she kissed him lovingly. End flashback. When everyone had woken up and eaten breakfast, Team 8 went outside to talk. Kiba, Hinata and Shino were really curious about the things Naruto wanted to tell them. They could see how nervous he was about telling them. Anko had to reassure him 5 times, otherwise he probably would have chickened out. When they arrived at the clearing, Naruto told them to sit down and get comfortable because they were in for a long story. Before I start, you guys need to know that everything I tell you now is a classified S-rank secret. You can't tell anyone you know about this. If you do, you will get arrested and executed. If you don't want to take this risk, I'll understand, no hard feelings. Naruto said seriously. He wanted them to understand the dangers of knowing this. Seeing none of them left, he proceeded to tell the story of how Yondaime sealed the Kyuubi inside him, saving the entire village. He told him about how he was hated by the adults for carrying the Kyuubi and because they thought he was the Kyuubi reborn. He told them how Mizuki had tricked him into stealing that scroll and how he told him about the Kyuubi. He then told them about his parents and how his dad was Namikaze Minato, 4th Hokage of the Leaf, and about his mom Uzumaki Kushina. He told them about the scroll he received from his dad and the techniques he had learned. When he was done, nobody said a word. Naruto was beginning to panic and worry that they would hate him as well. But he didn't need to worry. Naruto, this is unbelievable. I don't know what to say, but I will say this. It's an honor to be the teammate and friend of the person who saved Konoha all those years ago. Your dad was right, you're a hero amongst heroes, and I'm proud to be called your friend. I promise you that I will never see you as Kyuubi. You are Uzumaki Naruto, shinobi of the Leaf and member of Team 8. I thank you for telling me your secret. I swear on my life and pride as an Inazaka that I will never betray you or your precious people. Kiba said, holding out his hand to Naruto. Naruto grabbed onto it as a lifeline. Hinata and Shino agreed with Kiba's words and on their turn swore never to betray Naruto and his precious people. Naruto was their friend and teammate, and nothing would change that, not even the Kyuubi. Naruto was holding back tears when he heard Kiba's, Shino's and Hinata's words. He grabbed them into a hug, thanking them for not hating him. He told them that he was very glad and proud to be called a friend by such fantastic people. Anko as well thanked them for not hating her Naruto-kun and gave each of them a hug and a kiss. Kurenai for her part had never been so proud of her students and told them exactly that. She also told Naruto that the secret of his family was safe with her and that she was very proud to be a sensei of such an outstanding shinobi. Naruto was truly happy. The woman he loved so much loved him as well, and his friend accepted him even knowing about the Kyuubi. This was one of the happiest days of his life. Kurenai had also taken her students apart to talk about their first kill. She knew that a first kill was an important milestone in a shinobi's career. Shino and Kiba had responded fairly well once they got over the shock, and thanks to Kurenai's talk they accepted the fact that killing was an aspect of being a shinobi, so Kurenai was certain that they would be alright. Hinata, however, had been taking it very badly. It took a day or two before she truly realized what she had done, and Kurenai, Anko and even Naruto had to help her through the small depression she was getting in. In the end, she too understood the necessity of killing, and thanks to her teammates she was slowly but surely getting better, and by the end of the week she was back to normal. A week later, Team 8 finally prepared to go back home. The bridge had been completed and already things had started to change for the better for the people of the wave. Naruto couldn't be more happy for the people. They had suffered a lot because of Gato and his dirty businesses, but now it seemed everything would be alright. It would take a while, but Wave would become a true home for many people. Team 8 were seen as heroes by the people and everybody thanked them and telling them that they would always be welcome to come over and stay. When Naruto and the rest said their goodbyes to Tazuna and his family, Inari thanked Naruto for showing him how to fight for those he loved. He promised to never forget about the things he taught him. Inari, you did well back there when your mom was in danger. You tried to fight for those you love. I'm very proud of you. Naruto said to Inari. Thanks Naruto Nichan. I finally realized that you were right all along. I'm sorry it took me so long to see how wrong I was. Inari said while keeping his head down. That doesn't matter anymore Inari. You did the right thing when it mattered. Forget what I said about your dad being disappointed in you. I'm sure that wherever he is, he's very proud of you. Naruto said while holding Inari by the shoulders. Thank Naruto Nichan. I'll never forget the things you have taught me. I'll protect this village and my precious people just like you do. Inari said looking Naruto in the eyes. That's all I can ask of you Inari. Good luck and be strong. Naruto said while turning around ready to leave the wave. Tazuna promised that when the wave had recovered enough they would pay the remaining money for the mission. They said goodbye and started their journey back to Konoha knowing that they had made some good friends and had a place where they would always be welcome. Naruto didn't know it at that time, but Wave was the place where his legend started and would be remembered for years to come. After several days of traveling, Team 8 reached the gates of Konoha. For the most part everybody was happy to be back, but Naruto and Anko were kind of sad since they would have to hide their relationship until he made Chunin. They didn't want to, but it was the only way for them to avoid problems none of them needed at that time. Since it was early in the day they would first give their report to the Hokage so that he was aware of what had happened. Sandame sat in his chair reading over some of the preparation of the Chunin exams that would be held in 4 months. He frowned when he thought about the exams. He had a bad feeling about it and most of the time his feeling were right. He would have to make sure everything was in order if he would have to fight for Konoha and his precious people. He also would have to make sure that all his personal affairs were in order in case of his death. Though he hoped to live and see the day Naruto become Hokage, he was realistic and knew that this probably wouldn't be the case. When he heard a knock on the door he quickly stopped this line of thoughts and called the person in. When he saw Team 8 enter his office, he smiled wondering what kind of adventure they had to tell. After wishing them welcome back he told them to give him their mission report and to leave nothing out while calmly puffing his pipe. When an hour later they had told the whole mission, Sandame's pipe lay forgotten on his desk. He was amazed at their story. Never would he have thought that they would have to deal with such an opponent. That they had managed to defeat him without any serious injury or death spoke volumes on how strong the genin had gotten. When Naruto pulled out the scrolls which held the bodies of the demon brothers, Zabuza and Haku, he was told that his Ji-chan himself would take care of it and deliver them the money later today in person. Naruto demanded that the money would be split evenly amongst them since they were a team and every one of them had helped defeat Zabuza and his men. Sandame said that they had the rest of the week to recover from their mission, but they said it was okay since they had a week to recover while waiting for the bridge to be completed. He insisted that they would take the next day off. Naruto, can you and Anko come see me tomorrow? I would very much like to see these techniques you have made. Sandame said. Sure thing Jichin, but on one condition. We eat ramen tonight and you're paying. Naruto said, shocking Kurenai and the rest of the genin for trying to blackmail the Hokage. You got yourself a deal. Sandame said, laughing at Naruto's attempt to get free ramen. Naruto had spent a great day with his Ji-chan and Anko. They had started the day by meeting early in the morning so that Naruto could show him his first 3 kenjutsu techniques. When Sarutobi saw the damage they caused, he hoped that he would never have to face Naruto in a kenjutsu fight. When Anko told him that those techniques had broken Zabuza's sword, he gulped since most shinobi knew about the legendary swords of the mist. Being able to break such a sword would take devastating power and not many shinobi had such strength. Once again Naruto had succeeded in surprising him. When he saw Naruto's final kenjutsu technique he actually felt pity for the bastard who pissed Naruto off enough so he would use this technique. Though Naruto showed Sandaime his kenjutsu techniques, he didn't tell about his mastery of the Rasengan. He would show it to him during the Chunin exams. He knew that would really surprise him. After talking and laughing about several small things, Anko and Naruto told Sandaime about their relationship. Jichin, there's something that Anko and I want you to know. But you have to keep it a secret, okay? Naruto said. No problem Naruto, as long it isn't something that could hurt the both of you or the village, your secret is safe with me. Sandaime said, wondering what two of his favorite people had to say. The fact is that Anko and I are more than just student and teacher, or just friends. Naruto tried to explain. Naruto, are you trying to tell me that you and Anko are together as a couple? Sandaime said while a small smile formed on his old and wrinkled face. That's what he's trying to say, Hokage-sama. Anko said, helping out her boyfriend a little. Naruto nodded, slightly blushing. Really? When did this happen? Sandaime said before he hugged and congratulated both of them. Anko and Naruto then told him how they got together after the match with Zabuza and how they decided to keep their relationship a secret until Naruto made Chunin. Sandaime nodded, understanding their need for the secret, and told them that their secret was safe with him, and then he asked if he was invited for the wedding. Anko asked him if he would give her the honor of giving her away when the time came. Sandaime accepted with tears in his eyes, saying that the honor would be all his. After this wonderful news, they made their way to Hideki-san, Naruto wanting some new stuff, and he also wanted to show the sword he made. He had promised to show it to him and hadn't done so yet, so now was the perfect moment. Hideki greeted them good morning, saying how glad he was to receive such good company. He was glad to see Naruto and Anko again. The two of them had grown on him and he considered both of them good friends. Naruto started by showing him his sword and explaining how his sheath worked without giving the details of the seal. Hideki was truly amazed at the beauty of the sword, it was perfect in every way. He told Naruto and the rest to watch to store for a few minutes and ran off. A few minutes later he came back accompanied by an older man. He introduced the man as Miyamoto Musashi, and he was a very famous sword maker known throughout the world. He also told that this was the man who had sold his high-quality metal to him, which he gave to Naruto. Naruto introduced himself and Anko and thanked him for the fantastic metal. Musashi said that it was quite all right and that he was happy that a youngster as himself was interested in weapon forging. Hideki then showed him the sword and Musashi inspected it with the eye of a master. When he gave back the sword, he told Naruto that he had made a truly amazing sword and that he could tell it would never disappoint its maker. Naruto thanked him for his kind words and sheathed his sword. When Musashi saw how the blade disappeared, he was astonished at how Naruto had done that. After leaving Hideki and Musashi, the trio went to see Iruka at the academy since the new school year had already started some months ago. They arrived just a little for lunch and Iruka dismissed the students early, telling them to be back tomorrow for target practice. They raced outside, not even hearing Iruka or paying attention to him. He sighed. Being an academy teacher did have his downsides. But he cheered up, happy that he could spend some time with Naruto. He had changed so much since graduating he hardly recognized him anymore. They spent the afternoon talking, and when they told him about the mission in Wave he almost fainted when Anko told him he had defeated Momochi Zabuza. Though Naruto said he couldn't have won without her. She had to restrain herself or she would had kissed him there and then. But they had agreed to only tell Sandaime. They went back home in the early evening, tired, but having spent a wonderful day they didn't care. Arriving at Anko's apartment, they greeted one of her neighbors who wished them a nice evening. Since the people who lived here were all shinobi, none of them had a problem with Naruto and already knew that he stayed with Anko because of the problems with some villagers. When Naruto shut the door behind him, he was grabbed by his collar and pulled into Anko's lips. He happily kissed her back. She told him that she had been wanting to do that for hours. Since they had team training the next day, they went to bed early. After a goodnight kiss, both of them went to their bedroom. They didn't want to rush into things neither of them was ready for, so they decided to sleep separately for the time being. This was fine for both of them. The next morning they met with the rest of Team 8 to discuss their training for the next few months leading up to the Chunin exams. They would only take 2 missions a week and concentrate on their training. They had several areas they had to cover, so they would be busy enough without missions. Kurenai had asked them to write down what they wanted to learn for the next months. They each had to write down a goal they wanted to achieve. They would review it together and make up a training schedule. Alright Hinata, why don't you start? What have you written down as your goals for the next few months? Kurenai asked. Yes sensei, I have decided that I would like to learn at least 5 basic level medical ninjutsu so that in case of emergency I would be able to help my teammates. Next to those 5 jutsu I would request Naruto-kun's help in developing my new taijutsu style. Hinata said. Very good Hinata, that's a good goal. I'm sure we'll help where we can. Alright Kiba, what about you? Kurenai asked. I would like to learn several new jutsu outside my family jutsus. I thought it over and I definitely see the advantage in knowing some other jutsu. Also Akamaru and I will learn a new family jutsu from my sister. Kiba said. Good, there's defiantly a plus side to knowing jutsu. Alright Shino, what have you decided? Kurenai said, addressing Shino. With the help of my father I will start a new colony that will allow me to improve my current techniques, but since starting a colony requires a constant supervision, so I regret to inform you that I will not to be able to join for the first 2 months of training. I will join after the new colony has stabilized enough. Shino said calmly. Very well Shino, you will be missed these months but we know that you'll be much stronger when you return. We wish you all the good luck you need. Finally Naruto, what are your goals? Kurenai said. Well sensei, I selected to start creating some new ninjutsu and improve my kenjutsu. Naruto announced. Good job everyone. Anko and I expect that you work hard at achieving this goal. When you need our help call us and we'll do what we can. Kurenai said, finishing that part of the meeting. Next they talked about the normal team training that will take place every morning from 6 a.m. till 11:30 a.m. During this training they will focus sparring matches, team exercises and the likes. The afternoon would be individual training, though they would meet together so they would be able to help each other if necessary. After each month they would review their goals and see if how far they had succeeded in achieving them. On the other side of town a certain Hitaki Kakashi was in a very good mood. The newest tome of Ika Ika Paradise was out in stores and he had been able to pre-order a copy. Today was going to be a good day, he could feel it. He made his way over to the adult bookstore, barely able to restrain himself from giggling. When he left the bookstore while reading his new book he vaguely remembered something about training his team this morning, but he was fairly sure he had given them the day of. So he went home and started reading his book. Team 7 however, consisting out of Uchiha Sasuke, Haruno Sakura and one guy nobody seemed to know, were waiting for their sensei. Today was supposed to be team training but their sensei was already 3 hours late. Giving up, Sasuke told the pink one that he was going home since Kakashi obviously wasn't coming. Said pink one immediately started asking him out on a date, which was refused before she had finished her question. The nameless one nodded and went home as well. Sasuke was raving mad. This was an outrage in his opinion. He had been the Rookie of the Year, genius of the Uchiha clan. Of course if you're the only remaining member it was easy to be called a genius, and all he had been doing was idiotic missions. Sure, he had awakened his Sharingan during one of those missions, but all in all they were boring and useless. That such missions were about learning teamwork and promoting friendship amongst the team escaped the young Uchiha completely. He thought his teammates were only slowing him down and Kakashi was as useless as could be. The man was considered a genius shinobi, but so far Sasuke thought he was a joke. He was always late, lazy as hell, and read those orange books for perverts, so he was not exactly a prime example of a competent teacher. He walked through town searching for something to occupy him since he had nothing to do anyway. Suddenly he thought he recognized a familiar blonde-haired idiot from the academy and a grin appeared on his face. Nothing better to improve your own self-esteem by putting someone else down. He would enjoy this, he thought. Making his way over he saw that said blonde was accompanied by Kiba, Dog Boy, and Hinata, Crybaby, and a girl he didn't know. Well, if it isn't the village idiot, Dog Boy and Crybaby, long time no see. How's the academy, loser? Have you passed yet? Sasuke sneered at them. Naruto and the gang turned around and faced Sasuke, who kept on smiling. They heard the name calling but decided to ignore it. They would be the better man, so to speak. Ah, if it isn't Uchiha Sasuke. How have you been, Sasuke? I've been doing great, thank you for asking. Naruto said. Kiba, Hinata and Anko smiled at Naruto's way of irritating Sasuke. Whatever loser, what are you doing here anyway? This is a shinobi-only store. Sasuke said, trying to embarrass Naruto. I know this is a shinobi store, that's why I'm here since I'm a shinobi. Can't you see my headband? For a so-called genius you sure ask stupid questions. Naruto answered with a smile on his face. Most of the shinobi present in the store started snickering at Naruto's remark. It was funny because the Uchiha were supposed to have the best eyes. Not noticing Naruto's headband was huge embarrassment for Sasuke. To make matters worse, Sakura appeared out of nowhere and started asking Sasuke out again. Sasuke, who felt bad enough about not having seen the headband around Naruto's forehead, pushed Sakura of him and turned back to Naruto. So, how did you get that headband? I know you didn't graduate with us. Received any special treatment? Sasuke said. No Sasuke, I didn't get any special treatment of any sort. The truth is that I kicked Mizuki's ass when he tried to betray the village and steal a forbidden scroll. Since I defeated a Chunin-level shinobi, I was allowed to pass and become a genin. Naruto said in an even voice, showing that he wasn't trying to show off. He was just stating the truth. Yeah right, loser, like you could defeat a Chunin. No way, I'm believing that. Sasuke called out. Believe what you will, Sasuke. I'm fine with you not believing me, I don't care. Well, got to go. Places to see, people to meet. See you later, Sasuke, Sakura. Naruto said while following Anko and the rest out of the store. Sakura, who had been quiet since Sasuke had thrown her of his back, only now recognized the blonde guy Sasuke had been talking to. Not being positive it was him, she decided to ask Sasuke about it. Was that Naruto? She said to her crush. HNNN. Was the only reply she received before he left the store in search for something else to do. Inside he was fuming. What if what Naruto had said was true? What if he really defeated Mizuki like he said? He was sure that he could defeat a Chunin-level shinobi, he was an Uchiha after all. But the fact that Naruto, the biggest loser in the history of the academy, in his eyes anyway, had been able to defeat a Chunin meant that he had become very strong in a very short period of time. No way would he allow the clown of the class to surpass him, he would have to force Kakashi into training him seriously. 2 weeks later, Naruto had been working on one of his new jutsu when Anko arrived after having to meet Sandaime. She looked a little bit troubled, and when Naruto asked if she was okay, she told him that she was asked to supervise the second part of the Chunin exam. The Hokage had also forbidden her to tell anything more than that to ensure fair play. So she couldn't tell anything about it. Naruto nodded, saying that he understood and he found it to be logical that she couldn't tell them anything. Besides, he didn't want to cheat anyway. So what are you working on? Anko asked, interested in what her boyfriend was doing. Well, I'm working on a new Kaden jutsu, but something's been bothering me ever since we met Sasuke 2 weeks ago. The fact that those with the Sharingan could copy the jutsu I make bothers me. Naruto admitted. Yes, I can understand that. It's not really fair for such an ability to exits. But you have the Kage Bunshin you can use to learn. Anko said. No, that's not what I mean. I don't have a problem with people learning the jutsu I made. Well, some of the jutsu I made. There are several of them I want to keep secret. I don't mind people knowing my jutsu because they would have to learn it, they would have to practice and work for it. The Sharingan, however, just copies it and that's it. No effort whatsoever. That's what bothers me the most. Naruto explained his views. Anko nodded, understanding what Naruto meant. For a lot of shinobi, learning a new jutsu takes effort and training, but for the Uchiha who activated their Sharingan, it becomes child play to learn and remember new jutsu. Unfortunately, there wasn't much that could be done to prevent the Sharingan from copying. It truly was a very useful tool for a shinobi to have. I talked to Ji-chan about it, and even he doesn't know a way to counter the copying of jutsu, but he did say something interesting. He said that copying jutsu with hand seals was easy because they have a visual aid then, but jutsu like the Rasengan would be very difficult since they don't use hand seals. I believe this is the way to counter the Sharingan. Naruto explained. Anko thought about it and it seemed a very reasonable theory. Jutsu like Rasengan or chakra manipulation, which takes practice no matter what. Chakra control and manipulation can't be copied, it's learned, so that might be a very good way to work around the Sharingan. So when Naruto told her that from this point on his future family jutsu would be jutsu based on chakra control and manipulation, she smiled and said that this was an excellent idea. So, what is that Kaden jutsu you have been working on? Anko said, trying to get Naruto to show her. He had this incredible stubborn streak that he wouldn't say or show anything until it was ready, not only jutsu but everything. It drove her insane, being the curious person she is. She hated waiting and he knew it. That's why he does it, she thought. He likes to torment me that way. Now Anko-chan, you know that I won't show it until it's ready. Just a little longer and you'll be the first to see, I promise. Naruto said, knowing it would drive her up the wall. 3 weeks into the second month, Hinata had learned 3 of the 5 medical jutsu that she wanted to learn. She would now be able to help her teammates if they were hurt, and it made her really feel good that she had learned such a difficult area of jutsu. For medical jutsus you needed excellent chakra control, and this was something she was good at. All Hyuga were good at chakra control because of their taijutsu style, the Juken. Speaking of taijutsu, with the help of Naruto, and the rest, she had started on her own version of the Juken. It wasn't even near to anything resembling a new style, but she had made some excellent progress in her eyes. She always found the normal Juken to be very stiff and boring. She wanted a style both graceful and powerful. That's why for now she focused on making her body as flexible as it possible could be. This would allow her to do movements that normal people wouldn't be able to do, giving her an advantage. She would have to work hard on it, but she was willing to go all the way to achieve her goal. She still had to practice the normal Juken with her father and little sister, but unlike before, Hinata gave it her all during those sparring matches, and Hanabi had lost several times to her, which made Hanabi really mad, saying that she cheated and that there was no way that Hinata would have won without cheating. Hinata however told her that she didn't cheat, and if Hanabi couldn't take a simple loss from her sister, she still had a lot to learn. Because there were people out there who were many times stronger than her. Her father had been impressed but didn't say anything to his daughter. Kiba and Akamaru had been training with Kiba's sister Hana, learning a new Inuzuka family jutsu, and it proved to be a really hard one to learn. But they were certain that they could master it before the Chunin exams. Kiba had made good progress with his taijutsu and ninjutsu learning as well. Thanks to the everyday spars he had with Hinata and Naruto, he had learned a lot. The ninjutsu part had been going good as well thanks to Anko. She had taught him another Kaden jutsu and he was now learning a new Suiten jutsu. Today Naruto would show Anko his new jutsus he had made this month. She could hardly wait to see them, because judging on Naruto's face they would be fairly impressive. She could read him well by now. Their relationship was still a secret, but everything was going very well between them. They still hadn't done more than kissing, but neither of them made any move to go beyond that for the time being. Still, they found it very hard sometimes not to get carried away and made a promise to not cross that line for at least another month. Arriving at the training ground, Kurenai saw that everyone was already there and ready to get started. She couldn't help but be very proud of her team. They had taken training very seriously after the wave incident, and the results showed. They were getting stronger by the day, and stopped herself from boasting to the other Junin sensei about her team. She refrained from it because her team would face the other teams in the Chunin exam and she didn't want to give away any surprises. But when her team would beat the snot out of them, she and Anko wouldn't refrain from shoving it into their faces. Oh, she could hardly wait. She could already see the faces of Kakashi and Guy when their teams would get their ass handed to them. Priceless. Good morning everyone. Now today we will focus on teamwork and communication. A good team has their own way of communication with gestures or sign language. This is very useful during fights or infiltration where giving out commands by voice aren't possible. So I want you 3 to start on that. In a week or 2 Shino will be back and then the 4 of you can create your own language. Anko said, informing the 3 what they would be doing today. And I believe that Naruto here will show us 2 of the 3 jutsus he created. Anko continued, showing impatience at the jutsu showing part. Naruto chuckled at his girlfriend's impatience and told them that he would show at the end of the day. Anko, not wanting to wait that long, ordered him to do it now so that part would be over, trying to cover up her impatience. All of them laughed at her excuse. Fine. The first jutsu I made is a Kaden jutsu. It's called Kaden Ryusei Haratsu no Jutsu. The second one is a Suiten jutsu called Suiten Dekishi Dama no Jutsu. Let me show them to you. Naruto said, explaining a little about his jutsus. He backed up a little and started doing hand seals and said, Kaden, Ryusei Haritsu no Jutsu. He brought his hand to his mouth and exhaled dozens of small balls of fire. It seemed like the Kaden Hausenka no Jutsu, but there were a lot more fireballs and they were much smaller. But the real difference was when the tiny balls hit the ground, they exploded with a loud bang. When the dust cleared, you could literally follow the path of destruction the jutsu had made. For such tiny balls, they sure packed a lot of punch. This was the first one. As you saw, it makes a lot of fireballs and they explode on impact. Naruto said. His audience looked at the destroyed plane now filled with holes. Once again, Naruto had made a very impressive technique. Before they could comment on it, Naruto asked for a volunteer for the Suiten Jutsu. When nobody stepped up, he made a kage bunshin and said he would demonstrate with the clone. Suiten Dekashi Dama no Jutsu, he yelled and performed the jutsu on the clone. Anko and the rest saw how a round sphere made of water materialized around the bunshin's head. Naruto explained that the jutsu would place the opponent's head into a small reservoir of water and drown him. He told him that he could hold the sphere for up to 10 minutes without even trying. 10 minutes was largely enough for someone to drown. He said that it could be used for assassination, but its main purpose was to distract the opponent. Having to hold your breath and the natural panic that came with drowning was more than enough to successfully occupy the opponent long enough to terminate him. The downside of the jutsu was that to execute it you needed a source of water at your disposal. Anko liked the Suiten Jutsu immediately. It was a very well thought out piece of work. Like Naruto said, it put a huge stress on the victim's psychological well-being and she could see the use of the jutsu during interrogations. Panic and stress broke just as much people as psychical pain. She would ask Naruto to teach it to her later. Kurenai, Hinata and Kiba were impressed by the jutsu Naruto had come up with, but they weren't really surprised anymore. They had seen how he defeated Zabuza with his kenjutsu techniques he had created, so they knew Naruto had a certain talent to create awesome jutsus. So after congratulating him, they started on their sign language. It was now a week before the start of the Chunin exams and people were getting stressed, especially Anko. Since she was ordered to design the second part of the exam, she knew what Naruto and the rest would have to go through and it worried her. Chunin exams weren't exactly safe. People always got killed during these kind of events. She knew that Team 8 would have to face a lot of strong opponents if they wanted to pass the exams. It wasn't that she didn't have faith in the team's capabilities, far from it, she knew how strong they were. They had trained for the exams for almost 4 months and they had made a lot of progress. She looked over to where the three were discussing something about preparations for the exam. Especially Hinata had made excellent progress not only in her taijutsu, but she had changed her attitude and personality completely. She still was the gentle and caring girl as she always was, but if you hurt her or one of her friends she would transform into a determined and strong kunoichi who didn't take crap from anyone. Sakura had experienced this in person after she insulted Naruto when they had met during a festival last month. Sakura started calling Naruto names after he had said something about Sasuke being an ass, which was completely true by the way, and while Naruto ignored the pink-haired kunoichi, Hinata had retaliated by saying that Sakura was nothing more than a deluded fangirl who would get herself killed the minute she entered the battlefield. When Sakura answered that her Sasuke-kun would save her if that happened, Hinata had said that she pitied Sakura for not seeing the truth about Sasuke and walked away. Hinata had started on her own version of the Juken and had already created several katas with the help of her team. Her style was a very graceful style. It looked like she was dancing, but it proved to be just perfect for her. She was getting very good at it, but it still needed lot of practice and modification before she could call it finished. Her style focused on sealing tenketsu and hitting pressure points on the body. Sealing tenketsu would stop them from using chakra and hitting the pressure points would prevent them from using the limb. One of those attacks alone is enough to immobilize someone, but both of them at the same time was devastatingly painful and useful. Naruto and the rest thought that Hinata's taijutsu looked like a beautiful but deadly dance. Her clothing style had changed after Anko and Kurenai had told her that she shouldn't hide her attractive body behind that thick vest. Hinata at first refused to go shopping but changed her mind after hearing that Kiba might show a little more interest in her if she would wear something stylish but sexy. Hinata blushed at the thought what kind of clothes Anko and Kurenai would give her, but she had to admit that she liked feeling beautiful and sexy. She now wore a long black pants that fitted very nicely and showed how long her legs were, and had take boots, that like Naruto had a steel tip protecting her toes. She got rid of her vest and bought a long-sleeved fishnet undershirt and a dark sleeveless shirt to wear on top of that. She also started wearing her headband on her forehead instead of around her neck, showing that she was a true kunoichi. Kiba had certainly been showing more interest in Hinata after that. Kiba had learned a lot during the past few months and he had gotten a little more mature as well. He was still loud and impulsive once in a while, but when it mattered he was calm and collective. He had learned several new jutsu and had even learned to do a very special combination jutsu with Akamaru. Although he hadn't spent much time on his normal taijutsu, he worked very hard on his family jutsu with Akamaru. Together they were a force to be reckoned with. He too had changed his clothing style. Instead of a blue vest he now wore a dark blue sleeveless hoodie which allowed him to carry Akamaru on his back. He wore gloves just like Naruto, but his were fingerless because he grew claws when using his family jutsus. Shino had changed the least. That was only on the exterior though. On the inside Shino had changed a lot. First there was the fact that he now had a new colony of bugs that he could use, then there was the fact that he become a lot more open to his teammates than ever before. Spending time with them had opened him up, so now and then he would tell a small joke or something that he saw or heard. His training with the team did suffer a little because he had lot of training with his clan, but they had managed to make a perfect sign language for them to use during battle. He had also learned some jutsu from Anko in order to become a well-rounded shinobi. Naruto had grown a little taller and had lost a lot of baby fat in his face and body. He looked just like his father. Frankly, it surprised him that nobody in the village had noticed the resemblance between them. Then again, maybe they didn't want to see it, he thought. His training had been a great success in his own opinion. 3 weeks ago he had succeeded in making a variation on the Rasengan which make it a lot more powerful, and he also made excellent progress in the Hiraishin as well. He was close to finishing the seals for the Hiraishin. All he had to do now is find out the correct pattern to put them in. This would have to wait until after the exams, he thought. He had invented several new jutsu as well and he was really proud of them. His kenjutsu had improved very much and he even mastered his kenjutsu techniques enough to do them with one of his throwing knives. That proved to be very useful and he now was very proficient at fighting with knives. He had also made a special holster like his own for his teammates and a special belt that held several storage seals ready to be used. Since there were only a week left before the exam, the team had been told to rest up for the rest of the time and only do the team training and a light training schedule for the rest of the time. They wanted to be in the best condition they could possibly be, so rest was required. During the time they were free they would discuss tactics, strategy and make preparations for the exam. Anko looked at Naruto and a small smile appeared on her face. They had been a couple for several months now and she couldn't be more happier about it. Naruto was everything she wanted in a friend, lover and future husband, she realized. He was sweet, caring and he respected her above everything else. Sure, they had some disagreements every once in a while, but that was normal in every relationship, she had been told. In a way she was glad that Naruto would stand up for himself once in a while. Generally he agreed with everything, but sometimes he would be stubborn and not willing to give in and she liked it. It proved that he was comfortable enough around her to be himself. She blushed as she remembered the first time they had made love a few weeks ago. While they were both virgins, it was a fantastic experience and they enjoyed it very much. She was really nervous and had asked Kurenai about some tips, but she told her that discovering those things with Naruto would be much more fun and enjoyable. They were both very nervous, but once they started kissing it was like their bodies took control and everything went perfect. Naruto had been shocked into silence when he saw her naked for the first time and she was just as pleasantly surprised with Naruto. She thought he was gorgeous and she couldn't believe that she was the one he loved. They had made love several times since then and they enjoyed it every time. Every time they would learn how to please the person they loved and it drove them wild to see the other enjoying everything they did. Alright guys, that enough for today. Good job. Tomorrow is your day off, so I want you guys to rest well. No training, am I clear? Tomorrow night we'll all have dinner together, so I want us to meet at 8. You will have to wear appropriate clothes, so please remember that. See you guys tomorrow night. Kurenai said, dismissing everyone. A dress. Kurenai, you want me to wear a dress? You know how much I hate wearing those things. Anko said, complaining to Kurenai. Yes, Anko, a dress. You will wear one or else. I'm sure Naruto would enjoy seeing you in a beautiful dress. Besides, it will be fun. Kurenai said, ignoring the glare Anko gave her. Fine, I'll wear the stupid dress, but I won't like it. Anko said while leaving with a pout on her face. Naruto-kun, what are you doing? Anko asked her boyfriend for several months. Oh, I'm sorry, Anko-chan, did I wake you up? I just couldn't sleep anymore, so I decided to start packing for tomorrow. Naruto said while gazing at his beautiful girlfriend. Naruto had woken at 6 a.m. after a rough night dreaming about the Chunin exam. He was getting more and more nervous by the day. So when he woke up he knew he wouldn't be able to sleep anymore, so he got up instead. He took his checklist and started placing everything in front of him. He would have to seal everything into his belt today. He would have to seal food, weapons, a small first aid kit. Hinata had a very detailed kit with her since she was the medic of the team, and several other items that might be useful during this exam. Naruto-kun, you'll be fine. You and the rest are ready for the exam, you'll see. You guys are the strongest genin I have ever seen. We have been training for months, while others have been slacking off. You can do the sealing later, for now get back in bed, it's still early and I miss your warmth. Anko said, trying to stop her boyfriend from worrying. Naruto nodded and crawled back into bed next to her. She quickly spooned against him, holding him tight. He really enjoyed having her so close to him, it made him feel much better already. Slowly he closed his eyes and drifted back to sleep. When he woke up a few hours later he felt much better and got out of bed looking for Anko, who apparently had already woken up. He found her in the kitchen making some last-minute changes on a piece of paper. He greeted her and gave her a long kiss, thanking her for letting him sleep. So are you ready for the last meeting later on? Anko asked him. Yep, I'm ready. Just have to seal the stuff into the belt. I hope the others are doing okay. If they are as nervous as I am, their nerves must be a wreck. Naruto said while taking some toast. They'll be fine. Like I said, there's no way that you guys aren't prepared for this. The four of you trained like crazy every day for the past few months. I know for a fact that Kakashi only told his team about the Chunin exam 2 or 3 weeks ago. He simply forgot to tell them until then. Team 10 has been training for 2 months now, but I heard from Azuma that they could be a lot stronger than they are now. Anko said, looking at Naruto munching at a piece of toast. I know we trained a lot and we made some very good progress, but I'm still worried about the genin from the other villages. We can assume that they would only send their strongest genin to participate in the exam. So there might be some very strong guys competing. Especially the Suna team is strong. Remember how I told you about the other day? Naruto said, frowning a little. Anko remembered how Naruto told her about meeting the Suna team a few days ago. He had been fooling around with Konohamaru. The young boy idolized Naruto because he was strong, and his grandpa had told how Naruto would be one of the strongest shinobi ever to have lived. Ever since then, Konohamaru followed Naruto around trying to get him to play with him. Naruto, who always wanted a little brother, was only too happy to play with Konohamaru and his friends. But that day Konohamaru had ran into a guy who was wearing a huge package on his back. With him was a girl with 4 pigtails and who carried a fan. Naruto calmly asked the boy to put Konohamaru down before they got themselves in trouble for hurting the Hokage's grandson. At first the guy didn't seem to be willing to let Konohamaru go, but when another boy appeared wearing a huge gourd on his back he quickly changed his mind. The boy with the gourd looked really strong and Naruto had a bad feeling about this boy. He quickly told his team to avoid them at all cost. Fighting him would be very dangerous to say the least. They left the house an hour later to meet up with the team for a last meeting before the exam. They would recheck the equipment, the strategy and tactics they were going to use, etc. After that they would simply relax and hang out trying to relax. When they arrived at the training grounds they saw that Hinata and Kiba were already waiting for them. Kurenai and Shino had yet to arrive. They didn't have to wait long as they arrived a few minutes later. Alright team, this is it. You guys have come a long way. It has almost been a year since Team 8 was formed, and 6 months ago it gained an unofficial 4th member, making Team 8 without a doubt the strongest genin team in Konoha. I have seen you train, fight and laugh together, and there is no doubt in my that you guys are the best team a Junin-sensei could have. Anko and myself are very proud of you all. Remember that no matter what happens. Remember that you guys are proud shinobi of the leaf. You are members of Team 8, so show them what we can do. Kurenai said, showing how proud she was of her team. They all nodded and thanked their senseis for the help they have given over the past few months. They knew that without their guidance they wouldn't be where they were now. After that, all of them spent the day together telling stories and having fun. It proved to be the best way to spend the day before the exam. They went home relaxed and ready for the days that were to come. The next morning Naruto woke up after a good night rest. He quietly got out of bed trying not to wake Anko and started to prepare for breakfast. When he was done he went up to the bedroom to wake up Anko. He knew she was worried about the exam even though she tried not to show it. He knew her better by now. There wasn't much she could hide from him, the other way around was true as well. He put down the breakfast tray and kissed his girlfriend trying to wake her up. Feeling his kisses, Anko opened her eyes and smiled to Naruto. Quietly they ate breakfast and waited for the other to finish eating. When Naruto was done he tried to get up but Anko pulled him back into bed clinging onto him for dear life. Anko-chan, what's wrong? Naruto said concerned. Naruto-kun, promise me you'll be careful. Don't let your guard down. I'm scared that something might happen to you. I don't know what I would do if I lost you. Anko said softly in his chest. Anko-chan, I promise that I'll be very careful. I can't promise everything will be alright, but I promise you that I will make it through this exam, and when I do we'll be together again. There's nothing in this world that will stop me from coming home to you. I love you and I always will. Naruto said before putting his arms around her, pulling her in a kiss. I love you too, Naruto-kun. And I'll wait for you to come back home. Anko said before kissing him again. After they got ready, Naruto and Anko left for the Hokage Tower where they would meet Kiba, Hinata, Shino and Kurenai. Anko had to restrain herself from holding Naruto's hand but knew that she couldn't. It would get Naruto and the team in trouble since she was one of the people who would have proctored during the exam. Not that she would tell anything about the exam to Naruto or the rest anyway. She had made a promise to the Hokage not to tell, so even if she wanted to she couldn't. Besides, soon she and Naruto wouldn't have to hide their relationship anymore as soon as he made Chunin. They met up with Kurenai and the rest just in front of the tower. Anko and Kurenai bid their goodbye to the young genin. Anko whispered to Naruto that she loved him, which he told her too, and went inside the tower where they would meet the other Junin senseis. The kids went to the academy while discussing some things that had nothing to do with the exam. Just before they entered the academy, Naruto told them to wait. Guys, whatever happens in there, I'm very happy to be your teammate and friend. Let us make a promise, we leave no one behind, we watch each other's back and protect each other. We will pass this exam and become Chunin. Naruto said to his friends. It's a promise. All four of them said while Akamaru barked. I have a gift for you guys. Naruto said while getting 4 small packages out of his belt. He handed one to Kiba, Hinata and Shino. They looked surprised and grateful to Naruto for the nice gesture. When they opened the package they saw the same set of 3 throwing knives Naruto had given Anko. You guys are part of my precious peoples and the knives are proof of that. I promise you that should a person from your future family, no matter how many years from now, be in any trouble, all they will have to do is show the knives to my family. When they do, they will have the full support of the Uzumaki clan. No matter when, no matter who and no matter what, the Uzumaki clan will stand beside you. Naruto said. The 3 of them were shocked to hear Naruto's words. They knew that he always kept his promises. They placed the knives into their special belts and thanked Naruto by giving him a hug, Hinata, and a firm handshake, Kiba and Shino, and promised him the same thing. They would always be friends and now they would be family and allies. They went inside the academy and went straight to the 3rd floor, passing by some idiots who were incapable of recognizing a genjutsu placed on the 2nd floor. They saw Team 7 and Team Guy having some kind of disagreement, but since it was none of their business they just ignored it. When they arrived to the 3rd floor they went inside the room where the test would be held. They saw a lot of genin from all the different shinobi villages and some of them looked really strong while others looked like they just graduated from the academy. Naruto quickly looked around trying to find the one who would pose the biggest threat to them. After a short while the rest of the Leaf Genin arrived while making a lot of noise and drawing attention to them. Naruto turned towards the entrance and saw Sasuke, Sakura, the guy who didn't have a name, Shikamaru, Choji, Ino and the team from last year. Except for Sasuke and Sakura, he hadn't seen any of them around the village since graduation. He wondered how they would react when they saw him. He didn't have to wait long when Sakura opened her mouth calling him, asking for an explanation. Naruto, what are you doing here? How did you become a genin anyway? Sakura shrieked, hurting the ears of everybody that stood close enough to her. Damn Sakura, do you have to yell like that? And I already told Sasuke that I graduated the day after you guys when I kicked Mizuki's ass. Since he was a chunin I was allowed to pass my genin exam. Naruto said while he waited for the pain in his ears to go away. Really? That was you, Naruto? I heard about it from my dad. He said Mizuki was beaten to a pulp, barely alive when they arrested him. What a troublesome thing to do. Shikamaru said with his lazy voice. Yeah, that was me. He had it coming to him. He hurt Iruka-sensei and tried to kill us. Naruto said. The rest of the genin who didn't know this story started to ask some details, but Naruto just ignored them. He was watching Sasuke having trouble with his fangirls. He thought it was amusing for a guy like Sasuke to have fangirls, he just didn't know what they saw in him. He figured that they just liked him because of his name and fame. Sad really, he thought. Those girls were wasting their time and energy on something that would never work. Oi, Sasuke, could you get them to keep quiet? They're making too much noise, it's really irritating. Kiba said, trying to annoy the boy even more. Shut it, dog boy. It's not like I asked them to cling to me. Or maybe you're just jealous that you don't have a fan club like I do. I don't see how any girl could be interested in you. Sasuke said, sneering at Kiba. I don't need a girl who throw herself at me, Sasuke. I prefer a girl who still has her dignity. Kiba replied while sneaking a peek at Hinata's direction. Naruto had to smile at Kiba's antics. He knew that it was his way to calm his nerves. He was about to intervene when a gray-haired boy with glasses made his way over to them. He didn't know the boy, but he wore a leaf headband, so he must be from Konoha. He supposed he was a genin from the year before. When the guy said that they were drawing too much attention, Naruto had to chuckle when Ino and Sakura shivered as they felt the killer intent from the other shinobi. It didn't even come close to Zabuza's amount of killer intent, so he and his teammates were fine. He saw how the gray-haired genin who introduced himself as Kabuto said something about this being the 7th time he participated in the Chunin exam, and he wondered if the guy failed on purpose for some reason or if he was just weak. He would keep a close eye to this guy, there was something wrong with him. So you have these cards with information on shinobi. Can you show them to me? He heard Sasuke say. Apparently he had missed a bit of the conversation. Sure, what are the names of the people? Do you have them? Kabuto said to Sasuke. Rock Lee from the Leaf, Hyuga Neji from the Leaf and Uzumaki Naruto from the Leaf. Sasuke said, trying to find their weak spots. Naruto saw Kabuto take out 3 cards from his deck and he started reading on Rock Lee and Hyuga Neji. Judging from said guy's look on their face, the information was accurate. Naruto quickly grabbed Kabuto's hand and took his own card. He started reading and a frown appeared on his head. This was way too detailed to be done by a genin, he realized. Uzumaki Naruto. Age, 14. Birthday, October 10th. Blood type, B. Rank, genin. Number of missions, D rank 35 taijutsu, low chunin level. C rank 19 genjutsu, academy level. B rank 00 ninjutsu, mid chunin level. A- rank 01 kenjutsu, chunin level. S rank 00 overall, low to mid chunin level. Remarks. Defeated Chunin Mizuki after being tricked, resulted in passing genin exam. Trained for 6 months under guidance of Mitarashi Anko. Joined Team 8 afterwards to replace clan members when on clan business. Said to have learned several high-level ninjutsu and kenjutsu. Defeated one of the Onikyudai high Chunin level shinobi on a escorting mission to the wave. Defeated Momochi Zabuza, Demon of the Mist, high Junin level shinobi, in combat during escort mission to the wave. Rumored to have created several jutsu on his own. I don't know where you acquired all this information about me, but this is way too detailed to let out in the open. Naruto said, destroying the card in the process. I'm very good at what I do. Kabuto said while staring at Naruto. You're not who you say you are. There's no way a genin would be able to gather mission stats, who are kept secret even from Junin except the Junin sensei of said team. So don't try to tell me you just went inside and asked for the information. Naruto continued trying to find out just who Kabuto is. Kiba, Shino and Hinata were keeping an eye on Kabuto as well. If Naruto said something was wrong, they knew something was wrong. They trusted their friend and teammate. Sasuke, who had wanted to know about Naruto's weak points, decided that he should make himself known again. Whatever, loser, don't try to act cool. It doesn't suit you at all. We all know you're an idiot, so no need to pretend. Sasuke said, trying to anger Naruto. Yeah, Naruto, why don't you just go away and let the smart and talented people be? Sakura continued. Besides, there's no way you could compete with Sasuke-kun. You're just a loud loser who thinks he can become a shinobi. Ino added as well. She didn't really hate Naruto, but since Sasuke didn't like him, she went along hoping that it would help her in gaining Sasuke's love. Naruto just ignored them and went back to him team. He told them what had been written on the card and they agreed that something fishy was going on with Kabuto. While they were talking amongst them, Kabuto had insulted some shinobi who attacked him. When they saw Kabuto vomit, they wondered what happened since they saw him evade the blow. During the commotion, Naruto quickly made some cage bunshin and told them to henge themselves and hide all over the room. He had a gut feeling they would be useful even if it was to guard their back. Better safe than sorry in his opinion. A few seconds after the bunshin had hidden themselves in the room, the proctor and several chunin arrived in the room. They ordered everyone to take a seat and to shut up. Alright, listen up you little maggots. This is the first test in the Chunin exam and I'm sorry to say that for a lot of you this will be as far as some of you will get. I'll make sure of that. Now, we will distribute a sheet of paper. Do not look at it until we tell you to. There are some rules and explanations which I will give right now. I will not answer any question or repeat myself, so you better listen well. There are 10 questions which you have to answer, but the 10th question will be announced 15 minutes before the time ends. Now for some rules, you have 1 hour time to answer the questions. After that it's over. This is a team-based exam. This means that if one of your team fails this test, the whole team fails. If you get caught cheating, you lose 2 points for every time you get caught. If we catch you cheating 5 times, you and your team are done. The man in front said. The chunin in the room started to hand out the test, and when everyone received their copy they were told to begin. Naruto quickly turned over his paper and started reading the questions. He had a bad feeling about this. He hated and despised written test with a passion ever since the academy. He hoped he would be able to answer the questions this time. He had been studying with Anko for almost a year now, so he should be able to solve some simple questions. When he didn't know the answer to the first question, he skipped it and went to the second question and once again found that he wasn't capable to answer it. He quickly read the 9 questions on the paper and a frown appeared on his face. These questions were way out of his league. There was no way he would be able to answer these questions. How was he supposed to answer these questions? He looked around and saw that many of the genin there were having the same thought, judging by their faces. Somehow knowing that he wasn't the only one who had trouble made him feel better about himself. Alright, think Naruto, there has to be a trick or something. Let's think this over. What doesn't seem right here? Naruto thought, trying to calm himself down. He started replaying the words that man with the bandana had told him. There was something that wasn't right, but what? The fact that if one of the team fails, the rest fails too seems pretty normal. In missions, if a teammate gets killed, the mission is considered a failure is true. So that could be seen as a preparation for that. Okay, next is the cheating part. You get caught cheating, you lose 2 points. Now that doesn't seem right. When I cheated in the academy they gave me a 0 for the test or kicked me out of class. Here you just lose 2 points but you can continue the test. Naruto told himself in his mind. Anko-chan told me that Chunin were responsible for low to medium risk missions and would have to be able to things such as information gathering and spying. Naruto said, remembering one of Anko's numerous lessons. Then it clicked in Naruto's head. Of course, since this was an exam to see if the genins were ready to become a chunin, so they would have to show that they had the abilities of a chunin. They were supposed to gather the correct information, in this case the answers to these questions. This meant that somewhere in this room someone had the correct answers. All he had to do was find that person and find a way to copy his answers. He looked at his teammates and hoped that they would figure it out soon. But he saw Hinata activate her Byakugan and knew she had figured it out as well. Shino was using one of his bug to spy on someone, so he was okay as well. This left Kiba. Looking over to Kiba, he found him writing down some answers on his sheet, so this meant he had found a way as well. So now only he would have to find a way to cheat without getting caught. While Naruto was trying to find a way to cheat, Anko and Kurenai were sitting in the Junin lounge with Asuma and Kakashi. All four of them had a team competing in the exam, so they decided to spend some time together catching up with each other. Anko, who couldn't stay very long since she was the examiner of the second test, was really nervous and it showed. Kurenai had tried everything to get her to calm down but nothing worked. Anko, will you please sit down? You're driving me nuts with your constant running around. They will be fine, I promise. Kurenai said, trying for the 10th time. I know, but I still worry. I know they're strong and smart, but still I can't help to be nervous. Not just about the first test, I'm really scared something might happen to him, I mean them. Anko said, sighing. Ah yes Anko, I heard you took on a student. That really surprised me coming from you. I heard some rumors about something with Mizuki and Uzumaki Naruto. Asuma said. Yeah, I heard about that as well. I wonder how much of those rumors are true though. I mean, a academy student beating a chunin into a coma. Kakashi said, looking up from his orange book. If those rumors say Naruto defeated Mizuki, who wanted to steal the forbidden scroll and leave the village, and Naruto getting promoted to genin, then those rumors are true. Anything else is probably exaggerated. Anko told them. Anko listened how they started laughing and telling that there was no way a academy student like Naruto could defeat Mizuki without help. She was ready to bash their head in, but Kurenai held her back, saying that she should let them think what they wanted. They would see very soon how strong Naruto really was. It would be a very sweet revenge, she told her. Anko nodded her head but was still pissed off at Kakashi and Asuma for making fun of her boyfriend. Well, no matter what, I'm afraid that our students will be back sooner than we think. Asuma said. When Kurenai asked what he meant, he told her that the examiner for the first test was Morino Ibiki, who was the captain of the interrogation and torture squad. Seeing Kurenai didn't understand what he meant, he explained that Ibiki specialized in psychological warfare and that he would make sure the first test would weed out those who weren't ready. He would make the test a psychological game, and genin who had no experience in these kind of tactics would be in for a very hard time. Anko had to agree with Asuma. She knew Ibiki personally from the time when she was part of his team. He was very good at what he did and he knew how to put enormous amounts of pressure on people. He knew how the human mind worked and he used his knowledge to the maximum. But unlike Asuma's and Kakashi's team, Naruto and the rest had been prepared for this kind of thing. She and Kurenai had talked about every major group of shinobi like the Anbu, Hunternin, Interrogation and Torture Squad with them. They had discussed how each group worked and what they did. They had taught them well, Anko realized. Seeing she had only 20 minutes left before the end of the first test, she stood up and said goodbye. Kurenai wished her good luck and told her she would be seeing her in a few hours. Naruto had never been so happy that he had prepared for everything. Just before the examiner had entered, he had made several cage bunchins and ordered them to hide inside the room. Now he had a way to get the right answers. All he had to do was order each clone to remember one or two answers and dispel themselves, giving him the information he needed. It was perfect. The clones had hanged in several objects around the room and were unnoticeable for everyone else. One by one the clones got the information he needed by spying on the other genins in the room, and he started to write down the correct answers. Just when he had written down the last answer, the man in the bandana told them that they would now receive the 10th and final question. He explained that they had the choice to take the final question or not. He said that if they chose to take the question and failed to get the correct answer, then not only would they fail the exam, they would also be forbidden to ever take it again, meaning that they would remain genin forever. If they chose not to take the question, they would fail as well. He started laughing when he saw the shocked faces of the genin in the room. One by one teams gave up, not wanting to risk their future on this one question. They could always take the exam again next time. Naruto looked at his team and saw that none of them had any intention of not taking the 10th question. They were sure that they would succeed in answering the question correctly. Naruto smiled when he saw Hinata's determined face, showing she wouldn't back down from this. She had really changed, he thought. Before she would have given up not wanting to take such a chance, but she was no longer that shy and insecure girl. She now was a young woman who knew what she wanted and who was willing to do everything it took to get it. He looked around and saw that none of the other rookie genin from the leaf had gotten up, and secretly he was very glad for that. He wanted to show them how strong Team 8 really was, and for that they would need to face each other. After about 5 minutes, Ibiki saw that the remaining team would not give up, and he allowed a small smile to appear on his scarred face. He had expected a lot more teams to give up, but at least he could say he made many of them quit before they even started. Very well, seeing that you won't back down from this challenge, I can gladly say that each remaining team in this room has passed the first part of the Chunin exam. Well done. Ibiki said, shocking the remaining genin. What about the 10th question? A genin asked. Ibiki laughed and explained the true purpose of this test. First, they would have to successfully gather the necessary information to answer the questions. Since Chunin would be asked to do such information gathering missions and that they would have a team at their disposal, they were also responsible for the survival of the members of his team. Getting caught or noticed usually meant having to fight your way out and could result in the death of a member or members. The 10th question was a question to test their courage and willingness to complete a mission even with the odds against them. There would be missions where they would face a situation that was unfavorable to them. Would they continue the mission risking everything, or would they abort it like cowards? Sometimes they would have to risk lives in order to complete the mission. This was part of being a shinobi, and those who left were not ready to take that responsibility. He told them that information could mean winning the war or losing it. The right information would bring benefit and would complete the mission, while false information usually meant death and defeat. That's why it was so important to gather information, and that's why the enemy would do anything to get their hands on valuable information. He took off his bandana and showed the remaining genins his scarred skull, which was full of scars from torturing and interrogation. Just then the window shattered and a ball of something flew through the classroom. A large banner was attached to the ceiling by 2 kunai and read, Mitarashi Anko, examiner of the second test. Everybody looked at how a large banner hung from the ceiling and how a young kunoichi made her entrance inside the classroom. Naruto shook his head at his girlfriend antics. This was just like her to scare the shit out of half the remaining genin just by her entrance. No time to relax just yet, little genins. The real exams start now with the second test. Anko pronounced loudly. Ibiki sighed. Apparently Anko hadn't changed much since she became a Junin sensei. He knew she was putting on her mask, but he was one of the few who knew her quite well. They had worked together several times. And for someone as talented in the knowing how the human mind and psyche works, he saw right through her. Not that he ever made any notion of that. Everyone had a different way of coping with things that happened in the past. This was Anko's way of dealing with the betrayal of Orochimaru. Oi, Ibiki, you growing soft in your old days. How come there are so many teams remaining for the second test? I thought you were going to cut the number of teams in half. Anko said, turning towards Ibiki. I guess this year's genin are very talented. I did the test just like I was supposed to, so the rest is up to you and your test. Ibiki said, slightly annoyed at Anko's questioning his abilities. No worries there, I'm sure my test will cut their numbers in half or worse. Anko said, grinning with confidence. The genins who had been watching the conversation started to get a little nervous. The next test would be very hard if they were to believe the kunoichi's words. The genins started to talk amongst each other, but when the young woman yelled at them to be quiet, you could hear a pin fall. Next she told them to meet her at Training Ground 44 in 2 hours. She told them to pack for a week-long mission and left the classroom. Naruto got up from his seat and made his way over to Hinata and the rest. They nodded and left the classroom to make their way to the forest entrance field. Since all of them had packed beforehand, they were ready to go anytime. Thanks to their planning and Naruto's special belts, which held everything they would need for long-term missions, they didn't need any time for preparation. When they arrived at the entrance ground, they sat down and started reviewing their plans. So guys, did you see any teams that may pose a threat to us? Kiba asked. The sand team is the most dangerous one in my opinion. We should definitely leave them alone if possible. Shino said, conforming the rest of the team's thoughts. Yeah, also that Kabuto guy is someone to look out for. He isn't who he says he is, no way he's a genin. Naruto said. I also saw a team from Mist staring at us. Do you think they know that we were the ones who defeated Zabuza and his men? Hinata said, adding her views on the matter. That's possible, of course. The people in Wave could have told someone from Mist or they heard someone talk about it. That could be bad. Even if Zabuza was a missing nin, he still was one of the 7 swordsmen of the Mist. Defeating the team who killed Zabuza would mean instant fame and recognition for them. Shino said. So let's see. There's the Sand team, Kabuto's team and the Mist team so far. What about the rest of the Konoha rookies? Naruto said. One we should look out for is the team with Hinata's cousin Neji. They have more experience, longer training, and from what I heard their Junin sensei is very strong. Shino said. Otherwise Sasuke is the one to look out for. We don't want him to copy our moves after all. Then there's Shikamaru. While he might not be very strong, he's very smart and sneaky. Kiba added. Naruto and Hinata nodded, seeing they too thought the same things. This would prove to be a very good test on their skills. The forest would be full of enemies and the forest itself was nothing to laugh about. They would have to be on their guard the whole time if they didn't want to be surprised. Once they were done with discussing the opposing teams, they relaxed, knowing this would be the last time. For several days they would be able to relax without having to worry about being attacked. Slowly but surely every team arrived at the entrance grounds of the forest. Some of the genin from Konoha had heard about this place and seemed to be a little nervous. Naruto couldn't blame them. After all, not everybody had spent 6 months inside it before this exam. Thought Naruto did think he had an unfair advantage. There was nothing he could change about it now. Sandaime knew this and he still allowed Anko to use the forest as the second test, so who was he to question the Hokage? Just then Anko appeared in front of everybody, which meant that the second test could start every minute. Listen up. This is called the Forest of Death, and you will be staying inside this forest for 5 days. Each team will enter through a different gate and will have to make their way to the tower in the middle of the forest. The tower is located around 10 kilometers from each gate, so everyone starts out from the same distance. Anko said, starting her explanation of the second test. Everyone was listening to her words, not wanting to miss out any valuable information. Everyone except one Uchiha Sasuke, who decided that staying in this so-called Forest of Death was beneath him. Forest of Death. What a joke, you want us to go camping for 5 days. This is even more stupid than the first test. He said, trying to show off. Now, little Uchiha, you better pay attention to what I'm saying. We wouldn't want the last of the Uchihas to be eaten by some animal that lives in the forest. Anko said, smiling at Sasuke while stressing the part of the last in her sentence. Oh yeah, that reminds me of something. Before you enter the forest you will be asked to sign this paper. She said, holding a bunch of papers in her hand. This is an agreement paper saying that you know the dangers of entering the forest and the exam. So if you get killed, Konoha won't be held responsible for your death. If you want to compete in the second test you have no choice but to sign. She said while starting to hand out the forms. Now, a little more information about the second test. Unlike our little Uchiha here believed, this will not simply be a camp out in the forest, there will be battles. Each team will receive a scroll. Your missions is to get the scroll from another team and make it to the tower with your team. There are 2 different scrolls, one is Heaven, and the other one is Earth. You must have one of each to pass the exam. When you acquire the 2 necessary scrolls you are forbidden to open them before entering the tower. Any questions? She finished her explanation. Sakura, who had noticed that Naruto always joined Team 8, decided to voice her concern. Since they would have a team of 4 members they would have a huge advantage in her opinion. Anko dismissed her, saying that Naruto didn't have a team, he only joined Team 8 for missions and nothing forbid him from joining up with Team 8 in this exam. But since he was considered a team on his own he would have to find his own scroll, so even if they teamed up together they would have to fight for that extra scroll. After several questions about food, water and the likes, Anko told them that the exam was starting in half an hour. In that time they would have to sign their agreement forms and get their scroll. After that they would have to find the gate they were assigned to so they could start. Naruto and Team 8 each signed their forms and got the scrolls they needed. After that they went to the gate and waited for the exam to start. While they were waiting for the gate to open, Naruto sealed his heaven scroll into his belt and secured it with a blood seal so that only he could access it. He then made 2 fake ones from some empty scrolls he carried with him. Team 8 did the same thing, seeing this was a very good way to protect their earth scroll and to fool their enemies. Alright, let's go, Naruto said after the gates opened up. They hurried inside where Naruto would lead them towards the place he had stayed in all those months ago. Before they started their journey, Naruto made several cage buncheons for backup and scouting reasons. He told half of them to follow at several minutes behind them, the other half would henge into each member of the team and scout in front of them. Hinata, you stay in the middle and use your Byakugan every once in a while. Kiba, you and Akamaru go in front and use your nose. Naruto, you travel between Hinata and me. I will take the rear so I can attack the enemy with my bugs if needed. Shino said, quickly coming up with the best way to travel. All of them nodded and took their positions and started to jump between the trees. After running and jumping through the forest for about 2 hours, Naruto came to a stop, alerting the others who stopped as well. When they asked what was wrong, he told them that his cage buncheons were destroyed by enemies. Hinata activated her Byakugan to look for enemies. It's the team from Mist and they're heading straight towards us. At this rate they'll be here in a few seconds, Hinata said, causing them to take on a battle formation. Just then 3 shinobis dropped from the trees. They were wearing a typical black shinobi outfit with long black pants and a shirt, sandals and a mist headband. One of them had a huge sword that he carried on his back. He also seemed to be the leader of the team. There's a rumor going around in the mist saying that a team of Konoha genins defeated Zabuza, demon of the mist, and the description of those genins matches this team. The leader of the mist team said. We find it hard to believe this rumor. Zabuza may have been a missing nin, he still was one of the 7 swordsmen and therefore way out of your league. There is no way he could have been defeated by 4 genin like you guys. The mist shinobi on the right said. Even if the rumor isn't true, when we defeat you we will be seen as the ones who defeated Zabuza's killers, we'll be heroes in our village. The one on the left said. Until then Naruto and his friend had stayed silent, letting their enemies babble on since it gave them time to prepare. Naruto's backup cage buncheon had arrived and were waiting for the order to attack or defend. They also had made some decisions by sign language on how to deal with these enemies. It seems that we were right. You're targeting us because of Zabuza and Haku, but I'm sorry to say that the rumors of his defeat by us are quite true. We fought Zabuza and his men in the country of the wave a few months ago. It was a very fierce battle, but in the end he lost and we won. Though the 4 of us agree that Zabuza was a formidable opponent. It was an honor fighting him even if we were enemies. Naruto said. It's even better when the rumors are true. If we defeat you guys then we'll get honored above no one in the mist. Zabuza killed a lot of people from the mist and he was hated by many of them as well. Even if we fail this exam we still be promoted just for defeating the 4 of you. The leader said while reaching for the sword on his back. Looks like a fight is inevitable, huh? Very well, we'll fight you and take your scroll. Kiba said. Kiba, Hinata and Naruto stepped up to the front while Shino stayed behind them. They would fight the enemy head-on while Shino would protect the rear and attack them with his bugs. Since the enemy were genin like themselves they didn't expect the fight to be too long and dangerous. The leader grabbed his sword in both hands and headed towards Kiba, but just when he was about to cleave Kiba in half Naruto appeared in front of him and stopped the attack with his sword. While the attack was strong for a genin it was nothing compared to the blows Naruto had received from Zabuza. He pushed the enemy away and followed him, starting his own attacks. While Naruto was anything but a sword master, he could hold his own thanks to his training. Naruto knew he could win this fight without having to resort to his family kenjutsu. His opponent was still learning how to handle his sword and seemed to have trouble lifting it. Naruto blocked a blow, but unlike before he didn't push back, he pulled away, causing his opponent to lose balance and stumble forwards. Naruto seeing a opening punched the guy right on the nose, effectively breaking it. The 2 other shinobi had engaged Kiba and Hinata and were have a rough time as well. Hinata was using her new taijutsu style and was dancing around her opponent, sealing his tenketsu and hitting pressure points in his body. For Hinata this was the first real test of her new fighting style and it proved to be very efficient. She had practiced on her friends but she didn't want to hurt them too much so she held back a little during those spars. Now however she could fight with everything she got and her enemy paid for it. She had sealed several tenketsu in his arms and had hit 2 pressure points that made it impossible for him to lift his right arm. Seeing that the guy didn't stop attacking her, Hinata continued the fight by hitting another pressure point which caused a lot of pain in his leg. Kiba's fight had been easy. His opponent clearly was the weakest of the 3. Kiba was fighting him using some taijutsu moves he had seen from Naruto. He had been Naruto's sparring partner since they were about the same height and weight and he had learned some of the moves. So when his opponent tried to punch him in the face, Kiba grabbed him by the wrist and broke it by twisting it. While his opponent was holding his broken wrist, Kiba kicked him in the gut which made the guy double over, giving Kiba the chance to plant his knee into the face of the guy. He went down and didn't get back up. With his fight finished, he looked at Hinata marveling at the way she moved and fought. You guys made a big mistake by attacking us so soon and without making preparations. You should have waited a day or 2 before attacking us, we might have been injured or tired from other fights. Also you're mist shinobi, which means that you mostly use Suiden jutsus, but since you need a water source to perform them you should have waited for us to reach the river or something. You attacked us without having a water source to use jutsus which cut your attack power in half. Bad idea. Naruto said, punching his opponent in the ribs. You also made a big calculation error by attacking me with a sword you can't effectively use yet. You need both arms to lift and swing it. This means that you don't have a way to defend yourself should I evade or block your attack. Also when you swing your sword you lose balance because it's too heavy for you. This in combination with the rest makes it impossible for you to win. Give up and you'll live. Give us your scroll and you'll get the chance to fight another day. Naruto said while putting his sword at the young mist shinobi's throat. The leader of the mist team looked towards his teammates for help but saw one of them lying on the ground unconscious and witnessed his other teammate drop on his knees before falling face down in the dirt. He realized they had been defeated and the only way to get out alive would be giving up. But giving them the scroll would mean forfeiting the exam, which he didn't want to do. Even if we take your scroll, you could always steal one from another team. This is only the first day. Once you and your team have rested and healed up you should be able to get a scroll. Naruto said, seeing how his opponent was doubting which decision to make. Sighing, he took out the scroll from his pocket and handed it to Naruto, who made his way over to Kiba and the rest. Having received the scroll they nodded and disappeared in the tree, once again heading towards the cave, leaving the mist team to lick their wounds and curse their bad luck. 1 hour later Naruto and the rest arrived at the cave and took positions in order to check for enemies or traps. Hinata used her Byakugan to scout the area but it came up empty. It seemed that they were the first to find the cave or to arrive here. Naruto made some clones and told them to spread out around the clearing and guard them. He also ordered 2 of them to make some traps. While the clones were busy, Naruto and the rest went inside the cave to have some dinner and get some rest from the running and the fight earlier. With the food they had stored into their belt they didn't have to hunt or catch food, which meant more time to rest and also meant less risk of encountering an enemy. Since it was late in the afternoon already, they decided to stay inside the cave and prepare for the coming days. There would be one of them on guard at all time in case of an attack. The night had passed without any attack or problems and the team had gotten sufficient rest, so the 4 of them were in good spirits. They had already found a heaven scroll, so Team 8 was already set, which meant they only needed a Earth scroll for Naruto, and after that they could head towards the tower. The night before they had discussed when they should look for the scroll. Should they wait an extra day, which could mean that the opponent would be tired or injured? Or should they attack now and make their way to the tower as soon as possible? At first waiting an extra day sounded good, but when Shino said that there might even be a next test after this one, they decided they should finish this one as fast as possible. That would give them more time to recuperate from the last few days if necessary. The rest of the team soon agreed with Shino's way of thinking, and so they would search out a team today. Since they didn't really wanted to fight a team from Konoha, they would focus on the team from the other villages. Well, except the Suna team, which they had decided to leave alone as long as possible. When they woke up, Naruto created some clones and told them to scout the area and look for an opponent. After eating breakfast in the cave, Naruto's clone told him that they had found a team from Kumo who were located about 10 minutes from their location. The clones couldn't see what scroll they had, but even if it was the wrong one they could take it and reduce the competition. They decided that this team was as good as any other, so they prepared themselves for battle. They sneaked closer to the Kumo team and started their attack. Naruto made several dozen clones to distract them and to destroy any traps they might have placed. Shino would send his bug to leech their chakra while they would be busy fighting the clones. This way the enemy would be weakened and easier to defeat. The Kumo team, who were having breakfast at the time of attack, didn't have the time to think of a plan or counterattack. Faced with dozens of clones, they were caught off guard and outnumbered, so they had to make their way through them by force. This meant that they had to use a large amount of chakra and stamina, and with Shino's bugs feeding from them, they didn't last very long. When they defeated the army of clones, 2 of them were on the verge of fainting from chakra exhaustion. This seemed the best time for Naruto and the rest to make their presence known, and they jumped from the trees to face their opponents. Give us your scroll and we'll leave. Refuse to give it and we'll take it by force. Your choice. Kiba said to the Kumo team. Unfortunately for the Kumo team, they decided not to give the scroll and they attacked. But before even reaching Naruto and the rest, they got hit by 3 clones that Naruto ordered to take them down in case they didn't want to listen. So with the 3 Kumo nin down for the count, Shino emptied their bags and pockets and saw that the team had a heaven and a earth scroll. Apparently the team had already found the necessary scroll the day before but had stopped for the night. Naruto took the earth scroll and sealed it in his belt. He told the rest that they could do whatever they wanted with the other heaven scroll. Hinata, Kiba and Shino decided to take the scroll with them so they would have a backup. It would also mean that the Kumo team would have to find 2 new scrolls and maybe be disqualified if they didn't succeed. That was easier than expected. Kiba exclaimed. It did seem a little dirty to attack them with clones and Shino's bugs, but in the end a shinobi uses every advantage they have, right? Naruto asked them. Of course, a shinobi does not fight by the rules. A shinobi fights to win and to do that they use every trick in the book. Shino said. Since they now had the necessary scrolls, the only thing needed to be done was to reach the tower and they would have passed the second test of the exam. Things were looking good for them, but they decided not to take any risks. It wouldn't do to be caught off guard because they were lured into a false sense of security. They took the same formation like the day before and headed towards the tower. They had plenty of time to reach the tower, so they traveled slowly and carefully through the forest, not wanting to alert any enemies of their presence. After 2 hours of traveling, they took a short break and rested for a while, trying to catch their breath. Suddenly Hinata told them that she saw Team 7 being attacked by the Sound Team, and apparently Sakura was the only one capable of fighting. We got to help her, there's no way she can win against 3 enemies. Hinata said. Damn it, fine, I don't like the girl, but you're right. She's a shinobi of the leaf and we cannot ignore her like that. Let's go. Naruto said, getting ready to fight. They quickly made their way over to Sakura's position, wondering what had happened to Sasuke and the other guy. They must have fought a strong opponent if they were out for the battle. Maybe they faced the team from Suna. Sasuke would want to fight the strongest genin to test himself, Naruto thought. Typical him, getting his ass kicked because he was too arrogant and stubborn. When they arrived at the scene, they saw how a guy in a green clothing was fighting to protect Sakura, but he was having trouble for some reason. The Sound Nin was about to go for the kill when another team jumped out of the bushes. Hinata, Kiba, Shino and Naruto recognized them as Team 10. The Sound Nin didn't seem very scared of fighting 2 team of Konoha genins. This meant that they either were very strong or very overconfident. Naruto told the rest to stay hidden for now. If things went bad, they could always intervene later on. He wanted to see how strong the Sound Nin were. Seeing them fight would help them later on, he realized. The others nodded and stayed hidden in the trees, watching the fight that was about to start. But before either team could start attacking, 2 other Konoha shinobi arrived at the scene. They listened how the Hyuga boy explained how the green boy was his teammate and they would pay for hurting him. Just then a very strong but evil chakra filled the place stopped the conversation. Everyone turned their head to find the source of this new chakra and saw Sasuke standing there with strange marks on his body. This power is unbelievable. I have never felt so strong before. He gave it to me to accomplish my goal. With this power I can finally defeat him. Sasuke said while smirking. He then saw the crow that had formed and a smirk formed on his face. He quickly looked around and deduced that the Sound Nin had been the ones to attack them. They would have to be taught a lesson, he realized. Nobody attacked him without having to deal with the consequences. He looked towards one of the Sound Nin, who had been standing the closest to him. Seeing Sakura lying on the ground bruised and beaten showed him that this guy had hurt his teammate. Not that he particularly cared about her, but she was still his teammate, and if she got killed he would be disqualified from the exam, and that was unacceptable to him. Guess I will start with you. I hope you're worthy of a challenge. Sasuke said. A little genin like you would never be able to defeat me. Take this. Zenkuaha. The Sound Nin yelled out. A blast of wind shot out of his hand towards Sasuke, who didn't seem to move. After the dust cleared, Sasuke and Sakura had disappeared and the Sound Nin started laughing and boasting about how he had defeated the Uchiha. But when he heard his teammate yelling for him to look out, he got hit from behind and crashed head first into the ground. He shakily stood up trying to find his attacker when he felt someone grabbing his arms and twisting them behind his back. It seems you're quite proud of these arms. I should have to do something about this. Sasuke said from behind the Sound Nin. He then proceeded to twist the guy's arms even further than normally possible, and the sound of two arms breaking filled the area. He dropped the Sound Nin and started focusing on the other guy, saying that the first had been a big disappointment. The remaining Sound Nin, however, wasn't an idiot and realized that he couldn't win against this Sasuke. He was about to give up when Sakura grabbed Sasuke from behind and begged him to stop this fight. Slowly but surely the mark on Sasuke's body disappeared and he slumped to the ground. The Sound Nin quickly gave up his scroll in return for a safe passage of him and his team. Wait. What is going on here? Why did you attack us, and who is this Orochimaru guy? Sakura yelled out. I don't know. Our only mission was to kill Sasuke. We don't know anything else. The Sound Nin said, grabbing his fallen teammates, and left. When Naruto heard the name Orochimaru, his heart stopped for just a second. If that man was here, then Anko would be in danger. If she found out about him being here, she would confront him, and there was no way she could win against one of the legendary Sannin. Sure, she was strong, but the Sannin were on a whole different level than everyone else. He needed to know what happened here and how they had met Orochimaru. He turned towards his friends and they nodded. They had seen his reaction, and even when they didn't know what was going on, they knew that Naruto was worried about something. Naruto jumped from his hiding place and went straight to Sakura to question her. Sakura, what happened? Did you guys see Orochimaru? Tell me everything that happened. Naruto demanded from Sakura, scaring her in the process. Naruto, what are you doing here? How do you know this Orochimaru guy? Sakura answered back. If Naruto was involved in this, she would hurt him, she thought. Orochimaru is one of the legendary Sannin and he betrayed Konoha years ago. He is a S-class missing nin and a large threat to Konoha. If he's here, that would mean Konoha is in danger. Now tell me what happened. Naruto said. Sakura, who had heard about the legendary Sannin before, started telling about how she and Sasuke had been attacked by Orochimaru and how they tried to escape. She told him about that Sasuke had tried to fight him off, but that the snake Sannin had bitten Sasuke in the neck, which made Sasuke lose consciousness. She told him how he said that Sasuke would seek him out for power and how she managed to transport both of her teammates to a safe place and how she was attacked by the Sound Nin. Naruto listened to her story and cursed under his breath. This was bad, he realized. Sasuke had received a cursed seal like Anko, but unlike her, Sasuke had already activated it, and knowing Sasuke and how hungry for power he was would mean that he now be able to use it. He would have to warn him about the dangers of using the seal, but it was unlikely Sasuke would believe him. You should tell Sasuke not to rely on that seal. It's cursed and every time he uses it he'll become more and more addicted to it. It eats away at the soul. Tell him when you're alone. Naruto whispered to Sakura. Naruto made some signs and Hinata, Kiba and Shino made their way over to him. Hinata had been looking over Sasuke's wounds and tried to heal him as much as possible. She then went over to Sakura and started healing her as well. Even if she didn't like the girl, she couldn't leave her injured like that. It could mean the end of her if they encountered any more shinobi. After healing her, she went over to the rest of her team. Alright guys, we need to get to the tower as fast as possible. I'm really worried about Anko. If that man is here, she will try to confront him. I need to stop her from doing just that. I just hope I'm not too late already. Naruto said, concern showing in his eyes. They nodded and said their goodbyes to rest of the genins and left for the tower. They traveled fast and after another hour of high-speed jumping and running they reached the tower and went inside. When they entered the tower they came inside a big room wondering what they were supposed to do now. Shino remembered Anko telling them not to open the scroll until they arrived at the tower and since they were here now he figured that it was okay to open them now. They each took their scrolls and opened them hoping that they did the right thing. When they saw smoke coming out of the scrolls they quickly tossed them to the other side of the room preparing for what might happen next. When the smoke cleared they saw two people emerge and were surprised when they saw that it was Kurenai and Anko. When Anko saw Naruto she leapt towards him and grabbed him in a hug. She had been terrified thinking that they had encountered Orochimaru. Now that she saw him safe and in good health she finally could relax a little. Naruto like her was terribly worried but seeing her eased his heart and when he felt her in his arms he couldn't help but feel relieved. He held her and kissed her with everything he had showing her how much he had missed her and how happy he was knowing she was okay. Kurenai was equally happy seeing her team in good health. She too had been very worried when she heard that someone like Orochimaru was inside the forest for who knows what. No matter how strong her students were she realized that they had no chance in defeating a Sannin. She and her team smiled at the Naruto's and Anko's intimate moment but realized that both of them needed to know that the other was alright. She cleared her throat letting them know they were waiting for them so they could explain what happened. Sorry Kurenai you're right this isn't the time for loving. Anko said but there was a hint of annoyance in her voice. Alright you guys start talking. What happened in the forest? Kurenai asked the four genins. Naruto and the rest started to tell about how they encountered the Mist team and defeated them, how they arrived at the cave and spent the night there. They then explained how they defeated the Kumo team and that they took both scrolls from them ensuring that the Kumo team was as good as disqualified. Next they explained how Hinata saw Sakura being attacked by the Sound Nin and how Lee saved her but still got beaten. When they told about how Sasuke woke up with strange marks on his body and how his chakra felt really strong but evil Anko paled. Anko-chan, Sasuke activated his cursed seal. When he did he started babbling something about how he gave him the power to beat him. He was laughing like crazy and didn't seem to be his usual self. I told Sakura to tell him about the effects of using the seal but I doubt he will listen to us. Naruto said holding his girlfriend. Damn, that means it's too late to seal it completely. If he hadn't used we would have a much better chance at sealing it but now that's impossible. The only thing we can do now is suppress it with a suppression seal. But even that won't hold it if he doesn't really want to and even using it once could mean that he's already addicted. Anko said cursing their bad luck. She then told them how she had encountered Orochimaru in the forest and how she had fought him. Naruto wasn't happy when he heard Anko tell him that she had engaged Orochimaru when she made him promise never to do so. When he told her she apologized but told him that she didn't wanted to fight him but she was really worried about them and she had gone searching for them as well. She had hoped not having to fight him but in the end she had no choice. Naruto told her that he wasn't really mad at her but he had been very worried and it scared him. She hugged him tightly and kissed him quickly before telling them that they had been one of the first to arrive at the tower. Since there were still 2.5 days before the end of the second test they had that time free to relax and recover. Kurenai and Anko then showed them where they could rest and sleep. Anko told Naruto that she was going to report everything they told her to the Hokage and that she would try to visit him tomorrow. She kissed him goodbye and disappeared making Naruto sigh wishing that this exam would just finish now so that they wouldn't have to hide their relationship any longer.